What's up, large data bankers? Happy Friday. Welcome everybody to the stream. It's good to see you. It's good to get to Friday. I don't know about you, but for me, it's been a long week. A lot of stuff, a lot of work, a lot of things, and I'm looking forward to the weekend this time. I have, I was thinking of what to say in the early part of the stream today. Also, by the way, hey everybody, Jake, Pund, front left by the speaker, what's up? Glad to see you. Thanks for dropping into the stream. So here's what I want to say about my life today. My girlfriend's been working on a jigsaw puzzle. You guys know about jigsaw puzzles? You probably do. This one's pretty tough. It's a Bruegel painting. Think Bruegel, classic painter, right? This painting, it's got a lot of brown tones in it. A lot of monotones, a lot of spaces with not too much differentiation going on inside of there. On the other hand, lots of other stuff going on in the painting. Lots of people, there's like a table maybe, people are eating, I think. There's like a jug of water, there's like some lintels and stuff. But anyway, you know, there's been some struggles. There's been some difficulties with the monotones. At the same time, this is where the metaphor is really gonna hit you. The apartment that we live in, it has wooden floors. And in particular, it's got parquet floors. Parquet floors, you know, it's like it's like a little design on the floor, right? Like little slats are sort of facing a certain way and like coming together, making a pattern. It's pretty, you know, it's like sort of a nice looking thing that you can do to make a floor look designy. It's an old house. We're renting this apartment in this house in Brooklyn that's, yeah, I don't know, it's probably about 90 years old or maybe 100 years old. It's got these nice old floors, but part of the parquets, like the little wooden slats, right? A few of them are like starting to come up a little bit. You know, they've got nails in them, and that's how they are supposed to stay attached to the underfloor. And I think maybe some glue too. But in any case, when you're walking across them with bare feet, sometimes like your foot will stick a little bit to one of those slats and like pull up. You know, it'll pull up that slat a little bit, pull it out, and it'll just go scattering over the floor. Just like so many puzzle pieces, right? What's our lives but puzzles? Puzzle house. I don't know where I was going with that exactly. I tried, you guys. I tried to do it. Takio, thank you so much for the follow.
By guessing.
But in any case, you know, our lives, how do they work? Things inside of our lives fit together like puzzles. Oh my gosh. Maybe one day I'll be good at metaphors like they do on podcasts, you know? That would be great. That would be sick. So here's what we're going to do today, you guys. We're not going to talk about puzzle lives all day. We're going to be going back to finish off a project that we started last week to expose this table on disk size stuff that we were looking at. I don't know if you remember, but the idea of that was it's pretty frustrating as a user of CockroachDB not to be able to figure out how much disk space a table is using. And we implemented a little bit of a way to make that happen, get some information about that. Didn't quite get it finished, hoping to today come back and finish off what we started there. Pund used to say I was a professional puzzle solver for a while when people asked what I did. Good analogy for software engineering. Yeah, I think that's pretty much about right. You know, it's kind of like, what do they call Will Shortz? What's Will Shortz's title? It's like professor of puzzleology or something like that. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? You know, let's see. Will Shortz title? Puzzle Master, right? Puzzle Master Pund, you could call yourself. But I think you're right. You know, it's trying to do the software. It's like solving a lot of puzzles. I think the more you go in your career, at least for me, I feel like the more and more those puzzles become human puzzles too, right? It's like not just about how you can put the code together in the right places, but how you can communicate with the other people on your team to build something greater than just the one thing that you're working on, blah, 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 right? But I think it's totally true. Yeah, so let's get into it, I think. Let's get into it. I think here's what we wanted to do last time, this issue here. That is sitting around, not loading in my browser. I think that you guys, I don't know if anybody on the stream works at GitHub, but GitHub, I think they've got some bugs in their JavaScript. Something happens where if you have a bunch of GitHub tabs open, I think they're all sharing like a service worker or something like that behind the scenes, like one of those JavaScript service workers. Like, I think it like gets hung up on something. Sometimes it hangs, the page will crash. And if you have a bunch of them open at the same time, maybe they'll like all crash until one like resets, you know, like see what happened there? I clicked over to the same tab in another window and I come back to the first one and it's sort of like not loading. I think there's some bug in their JavaScript. So I don't know, GitHub engineers, consider this a bug request. But okay, so here was the issue we started looking at. It's an old one too. It's satisfying to work on old issues in open source projects. Issue number 20,000 from 2017. So 3 years later. Admin UI computes the approximate undist size of tables. Makes sense to expose this information programmatically via SQL. All it's needed is a place to expose it. Turns out that Postgres, you know how we like to sort of make sure that we mimic Postgres's API when we can in CockroachDB. Turns out Postgres already has a pretty compelling API for this called PG table size. Well, there's a few variants of it. PG table size, PG indexes size, and then PG total relation size. They kind of all add up. Total relation size is like the sum of PG table size and PG indexes size. But actually, in fact, I think I need to rename this to say PG total relation size, because that's what we ended up doing. But we did a PR here. There's a little feedback I want to address, talk about what it means on stream, and maybe try to make some improvements there. But it's kind of the plan, what we're going to start doing. Jake the programmer, I've been fascinated by the stuff you've been working on. SQLite clone to better understand databases. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Tell me more about that. SQLite clone. I mean, SQLite is a serious piece of engineering. So building a clone of SQLite is no small feat. Building a SQL engine in general is no small feat. So I think if you actually go through with that project, you're going to have a great time and you're going to learn a lot. So I encourage you to do it. Dominic, what's up? Favorite kind of POV? Cool. So let's take a look at the feedback. Basically, here's what I need to get back in the swing of things here. Let me tell you guys something, some honest truth. This week, I have not done anything with my IDE since last Friday. Zero things. So I'm basically picking up where I left off exactly from last time. So here's what we did. PG total relation size. It's going to, yes. Okay. So what this is about, what this is saying is that, so in CockroachDB, the general architecture of how CockroachDB distributes data across the cluster is that you might imagine like, okay, I think we've talked on the stream about ranges. Ranges are the sort of primitive that we use to break up the data that we replicate across the cluster. Each piece of data is stored in a range, and each range is replicated in a replication group. We use Raft for that. But you might ask a good question, which is, given a key, so given a SQL row, or given the values of a row that you're looking up via an index, in a sense. Did that make sense? Let me just be concrete so I can make sure that we're all on the same page here. Opening up a demo. Let's make a table. Say we had a table with a key and a value. And let's say we have some data into it. Question is, like, given 1 in this case, given a equals 1, select star from a where a equals 1, how does SQL figure out which range in the cluster this piece of data is located at? Is kind of an important question to answer, because the first thing you have to do to fetch the data in Cockroach is to figure out which range it lives on. So how do we do that? The answer is that we've got this sort of, we call it a meta range hierarchy thing that it's sort of like a directory. You can think of it as a very high level index for the ranges themselves. Maestro, thank you for the follow. So in order to look up the ranges for a piece of data, you've got to go to this special meta range and look up yeah, look up the ranges from the meta range ultimately. So what we do to make this query happen is that we need to, so each range also contains metadata about all of the data that it has inside. For example, it contains statistics on the size of the data that it contains. So that was the idea that we were going to use here, to use the range's statistics to figure out how much data is in a particular table. So what we do in this method that we wrote is that we scan the meta ranges to find the meta information for the ranges that are contained by, for the ranges that contain the table that we're querying up here. So we ask for this table ID, we get the ranges that the table ID is contained by. Then we iterate down here, we get these things called range descriptors, which has that metadata. For each range descriptor, we iterate over it, we pull it out, we deserialize its protobuf bytes into a protobuf struct inside of Go. And then we have to make another request. So we're sort of doing this two-level thing, I'm remembering now. We fetch the meta information for the ranges, and then for each range, we have to issue a range stats request back to the database, which is a way of asking the range for its statistics. I guess those statistics don't come back in the range descriptor. They're sort of stored separately, so we ask for those. We assemble this big batch of range stats, we run it in our transaction, and then for each of the responses, we sort of sum up these key bytes and value bytes from the MVCC stats for the range, and we return the sum. Okay, so kind of a mouthful. Let me see what's happening in chat. Jake found the tutorial blog where this guy builds a SQLite clone using C, fairly basic clone, but not gonna look at all. Just gonna read it, what the architecture does and its purpose and build it in Rust. Oh, that's super cool. That's exciting. So the Rust, rewrite it in Rust philosophy for SQLite. I think that could be a big hit on the Hacker News community if you manage to make it happen. Seen the tutorial why Rust. Learned Rust over winter break. Find it fascinating. Language you ever used before. Yeah, I think that's ambitious. I think that ambitious is good though, right? If you take this project and really run with it, like I said earlier, I mean, you're just going to learn an enormous amount. So, yeah, do it up. CH Lunde, will this require all replicas to be online? So I think the way that this works is that these range stats requests are served by I'm fairly sure that they have to be served by the leader of the replication group of the range, which means that it doesn't require that all replicas need to be online, just needs to be that the leader is alive. Meaning, and I think that's basically the same as saying the range is available. So for example, if you had 5 replicas alive for a particular range, you could lose up to 2 of them, since you'd still have 3 left, and 3 is a majority of 5. That's kind of like the way that this replication stuff works. If you have a majority of replicas alive for a range, it's sort of enough to go about doing its work. So right, we send these things out. Yeah, it does do a fan out, right? That's one little bit of an unfortunate thing, is that making this request happen is like, expensive. Like, here's what Toby says. So I put this review up, right? That's what I wanted to talk about next. And I got this review from Toby. I haven't looked at it until now, really. But Toby says, anything that fans out to the whole cluster is dangerous when called frequently. Is this going to be called frequently? I don't know. Probably not my call to make. Individual call shouldn't be too bad since it's only reading from the leaseholders. Okay, so that confirms what I was thinking about the leaseholders. I think that the thing about this being called frequently is that these so ultimately, like, why are we doing this again? I think it's because there's a lot of these tools that people like to use against Postgres-like databases that end up calling this thing PG total relation size, and it would be kind of good to support it from a compatibility perspective. Actually, one thing that I love to do is, if you go to GitHub has this really amazing
I have to narrow down the search.
Code search that we can use. Code search. Roach Rail, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream. I think I might know who you are. We haven't met yet, but hello. Thanks for stopping by the stream. Feel free to say hi in the chat. Right, so if you go to GitHub's code search and click code for this particular thing, you should be able to see examples of places where this thing is used. And as you can see, the things that kind of come up are Here's an example of what looks like a IntelliJ configuration, maybe? Wow, this is actually super suspicious. So, okay, so here's an example of something that you should never do, you guys. Put your IntelliJ configuration containing your Postgres password on the public internet. So I'm sorry for exposing this, Mr. Habitus, but I don't know what to say. Anyway, point is point is that this query, whatever it's doing, is presumably calling this relation size thing over and over again. And probably it's going to get run fairly frequently. It's okay, it's from 2016. I'm sure he regularly changes his passwords. That's a fair point. Very fair point there, Dominic. Okay, so moving on to this other one. Here's a test file from PyAdmin, which is something. What is this? This is a simple Python Postgres admin console. Presumably that's what that means. And it's calling PG total relation size. And yeah, I mean, typically, okay, so what is this query doing? It's saying select rel name as table, PG size pretty as size, PG size pretty. And I'm guessing it's just going to select every single table, right? PG catalog.pg stat.io user tables order by. So it's doing, I mean, this is going to be expensive, right? Essentially what this query is doing is it's saying for every table, please fetch the total size of the relation. And in our very naive implementation over here, what that's going to do is do n fan outs, right? Once per table. And I don't know if that's acceptable. I truly don't. I truly don't. So Toby says an individual could, yeah. I'll just respond to this real quick. I think I will say that this function tends to get called by, I guess I'll call it like metadata scraping, admin consoles, and such. I suspect someone will use this from a Prometheus export. Yeah, that's a very good point too. I'll mention that too. Prometheus exporters and other things that presumably will call this function once per table in the whole database. So maybe this is not really the best idea to implement it this way. The other thing, Andrew, what if we just cache the table size during table stats? Maybe you're talking about like SQL table statistics. That's an interesting idea. That was something that came up on the original issue that we made back in the day for this. I think that one thing is that SQL table statistics, it actually doesn't count that stuff, I don't think, which is something that we've talked about before on the stream. Yeah. Get the physical stats that you want to get, but doing during auto stats collection. Yes, I think that you're right about that. I think that one thing that's interesting is that I just don't think that that's something that we do today. Where does this thing happen? Stats collector. So for folks on the stream wondering what this is all about, there's kind of two kinds of stats that we keep. There's these MVCC stats, which is a per range statistic thing about, to be honest, I don't understand everything about MVCC stats. In fact, I understand very little about it. I don't understand. I know it's important to keep them up to date, but I don't exactly know why. But anyway, so those statistics are completely distinct from these SQL table statistics that we keep, which are really about informing the optimizer of what tables are big, what tables are small, what kind of the distribution of data in the table is as well, to make the best query plan. MVCC stats doesn't represent the on-disk footprint. Yeah, so Toby was saying something about that as well. So that was the next comment that he made down here, which was that orthogonally, is this the right implementation? It looks like people want this to reflect the disk usage, not the number of logical bytes in the cluster. which is what you're returning now. Indeed, I guess that is what I'm returning. I did not know that, but I'm glad that I've learned it. By implementing it as such, we're just going to switch users from asking for this to be implemented to asking why it returns seemingly bogus numbers, especially seeing how the UI perhaps does not return the thing. Okay. There has been a discussion, it was resolved. It should do what this PR proposes. Haven't seen it nor on the link to choose. Okay. Well. Well. I think based on the answer and based on the text you wrote below this question, the answer is no. I didn't realize that the MVCC stats didn't reflect the physical bytes. The physical disk usage, I guess I could say. The physical disk usage of the range. I'll probably figure out another way to do this after I merge the first commit to fix 59601. 59601. There's a per range request to get the physical data size. I think just go collect both MVCC and physical data stats, but hook it up to optimizer stats. So the per, I thought that I was doing the per range request to get the, I guess maybe it's a different thing. It's not range stats request, but something else. This is a good thing to do. Let's check out our API for the key value layer. Something that exists, believe it or not. I've always wished there was an easier way to see all of the kinds of requests. I think there is, right? Isn't there some kind of giant union somewhere at the bottom here? Yeah, here it is. Okay, request union. So I can do a get, a put. This is so cool, you guys. This is what CockroachDB is at the very, very bottom. It's a big key value store with all of these requests as its API. So the way that SQL is implemented is that it uses each of these requests as primitives to implement SQL. It's very neat stuff. So you got your deletes, your increments, your clear range, your revert, your scan, end transaction, admin commands. These are about changing the way that data is distributed and such, splitting ranges, merging ranges, changing replicas, heart beating transactions, garbage collecting things for old MVCC data, I think. Interesting to have an admin merge request and a merge request. I don't know what that's about. Truncate log request. Compute checksums.
Computers hooked into over 1,000 data banks throughout the world.
Ved Dranko, thank you for the follow. Init puts. Transfer leases. So where's my stats at? Recompute stats. Range stats. Merge is low level. Admin merge is high level. Fascinating. Store key span stats, eh? Store key span stats carries the result of a stats computation over a key range. So inside of it, it's got, oh yes, this thing, approximate disk bytes. That's right. So this is actually what the admin UI uses. I mean, the DB console. Big Decimal. Now that is a fantastic Twitch username for this stream. You may or may not know it, but we've talked a lot about big decimals on the stream a few months ago. You should have showed up then. Right, so span stats response and span stats request. Oh, I see. So it's actually a different API where you can get some of this stuff. It's the server PB world, which is what the DB console uses for everything. Out of curiosity, let's see. How can we find out who's emitting those requests? Let's find out. So span stats request. Kadobes, DB console admin UI. I can never remember the name anymore. Such is life at an ever-changing product. Admin.go. Brohanster. PFE stream, exactly. It's pretty bad. It's a Tor address, so it's going to be hard to use. Oh, yes. That is right. So this is the way that it's implemented with this really heinous thing that does some fanning out and some Go routines and stuff like this. I remember looking at this and getting very scared by it and running away quickly due to fear.
Into over 1,000 data banks throughout the world.
Big Decimal, thank you for the follow. So there is this table stats method, right? So what does this do? Table stats request. I suppose I could just hook into this. That's another option. I mean, uh-oh. Okay, well, you see what I'm seeing? Oh, table is the name of the table. Oh, yes, no, I think I fixed this. Table may be schema qualified. So this is super jank, but at least it works. At least we schema qualify the table. So I suppose I could hook into this, right? I could say, instead of doing what I'm doing in that built-in, I could say, let me run this table stats request and then come back with the, well, on the other hand, since it's expensive, maybe we ought to just do this thing that we're talking about with the optimizer statistics, right? Like, why, why do it if it's computationally expensive? That just sounds sad. It just sounds sad for everybody. I think we do it because we don't really have a choice right now. Perhaps if we had a choice, we would use those optimizer stats instead. Well, oh, you're saying you'd use this inside of AutoStats collection. That I didn't understand. I was sort of thinking that you were saying during AutoStats collection, you would just be counting up the bytes, which, I mean, that's another fine way of doing things, right? There's no strong reason to delegate to some other, well, it is a horrible reason because you got to know about those MVCC keys, those old versions. Very important to do this, actually. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. If you just counted up the bytes based on the actual keys that are returned from these AutoStats, you would get the wrong number. Well, maybe it's a good time to look at this AutoStat stuff again. AutoStats. Time to augment the range stats request with a flag to grab approximate disk bytes and then issue those during stats collection somehow, somewhere. Interesting idea. Refresh stats. Oh, or does this just run a SQL query? Is that how this works? And then the implementation of the SQL query lives somewhere else? Create stats run. Oh yeah, it's a job. At the end of the day, you're going to want to look at the job and then the SQL flow. Oh, for stats. Yes, that makes sense. Create stats details, right? So this is the information that we store in this job record to instruct the job what to do, presumably. So probably somewhere in another file, we're going to be looking at this thing and choosing how to make the plan. So here's where we're planning out the statistics query via this thing called DistSQL Planner, which is about how to make a physical plan for a query. The DistSQL Planner is involved in putting different components of the query on different nodes of the cluster. And I guess what we do here is interpret this create stats details, which has stuff like the table that we're collecting stats for, a historical timestamp, fully qualified table name for some reason. And I guess given this, okay, so let's read this. It calculate the set of columns we need to scan. We make the table readers. I mean, this is a little bit weird because I think ultimately what we want to do here is like schedule another process. Like I don't think that we would want to have this query be the one to like also fan out and get the range stats or the approximate range stats or whatever. It's kind of like we'd want to just do it up front or concurrently or something like that. You know, so like when we actually run this thing, maybe it's sort of, we just want to do two things at once here. Right, so, okay, so here's plan and run create stats. We make the plan, we finalize the plan, we run the plan, and then over here, I mean, this is an opportunity for us to do something in parallel. Excuse me, I have a pistachio nut in my throat somewhere, I think. I think theoretically, there's probably some waiting that happens somewhere over here. And I think that we could easily say, like at this point, we want to not only kick off the execution of the stats collection query, but also in parallel, fetch the approximate disk bytes of the table. So on the other hand, there is a small weird thing about this, which is just that when we ask for statistics, I believe it's the case that
Databanks.
Pizza in the oven, thanks for the follow. I believe it's the case that each create statistics is actually just doing a subset of the columns in a table, right? I think I ran into this at one point actually, because yeah, I think the way that this works is that ultimately we end up with some information about a subset of the table. We know about the way that these columns are, like the data inside of these particular columns of a table. But the thing is that this is actually like top level information about the table. And I think I ran into a little bit of trouble figuring out how to store that information that's top level table information that isn't sort of scoped to a column set. So I'm wondering if I can figure out where again I ran into that trouble and kind of dive in from there. Like where, okay, so right. Where do we actually write these statistics back to disk? That's something I don't remember. Maybe if we look inside of this stats plan, we'll find out. I know that there's some processors that are involved. There's a sampler. There's a sample aggregator. Perhaps the sample aggregator is the last stage. So we should look at what actually consumes this sample aggregator spec and does stuff based on it. So set up the final sample aggregator stage. Presumably what this will do is it, I think actually, can't I show this off in the console for you guys? So I'm not just talking about something that makes no sense. What if I said create table? Actually, let's make C demo nodes equals 3. So we'll make a 3 node cluster demo. We'll say create table a int primary key. And then what if I say explain dist SQL create statistics on a of a? Is that how this works? Is it 4? Okay. Okay. This is always something that I am. Well, how does one do this? Create statistics from create statistics. Oh, I see. You name it foo from A. Okay, so then let's say I said explain to SQL on this. What, do I get anything cool? The answer is kind of. The answer is kind of. What's up, Edvin Boss? It's not super cool. So I was kind of expecting that we would be able to see that this sampler ends up on all of the 3 nodes in the cluster, but that's not the case. But then again, hold on. I think it's just because we haven't scattered the ranges. So let's actually make this happen. So I'm going to say insert into A. Wait, show create A. What is A again? A is just a single node table. Let's drop table A. We'll make a new one. Create table A. A int B int, or I think it's just A B as generate. Select generate series 1 through 1,000. I think we have to go like this, right? Okay, so now we have 1,000 rows in this table, and I think I can split this table up into a few ranges. Alter table A split at, and then if I said values, maybe 20, 30, 40. It's got to be a fast way to do this, right? 60. Okay, maybe this will be enough. Okay, so what this does is it tells, I was talking about ranges earlier, right? So this tells the database to split this table up into a bunch of different ranges at these keys. Normally the database wouldn't split this table up until it was a bit bigger because there's no point in splitting such a small table, but we're telling it to do that just for the purposes of fun. And then if I say alter table A scatter, Edvin Bus, guess it's a stupid question. No stupid question. Why are you using Go for building CockroachDB? Basically, the short answer is that when we started building CockroachDB in 2015-ish, 2016, we felt it wasn't really me who made this decision, but the folks who started the project felt that Go was the right choice, right balance between pragmatic, quick to develop in with a garbage collected language, don't have to think so much about the difficulties of C++. I think some of the folks who started the project were scarred a little bit by the pain of C++ for quick development, right? So CockroachDB is not just a core storage engine, right? It's not just a small, really tight, really fast project. It's a really, really complicated thing. Every RDBMS kind of thing is really complicated, a lot of code, especially so a distributed one. And so it's important to not just only focus on performance, not just only focus on, bare metal speed, memory management kind of thing. It's also important to make sure that you can actually develop in it in a reasonable pace. And so the folks who started this project in Go felt that Go is the best balance between that pace of development and, performance. A lot of people ask why not Rust, and I think the easy answer to that is that Rust wasn't really around or particularly popular back in 2015. I think if we had to make that choice again today, I would maybe say that Rust could be good for a part of the database, not all of it. I wouldn't say that it would be a good idea to write all of CockroachDB in Rust. I think that would be really challenging. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but I appreciate the question. I've also got these resources here about it. Right. Okay, so now that I've scattered these ranges, I think if I were to do explain to SQL on the create again, I would potentially get something better. Whoops. And indeed I do. So that's very cool. So what we see here is that since some of these ranges were scattered to another node in my little mini in-memory demo cluster, the query had to plan these samplers on the leaseholders of the ranges that we split up. And some of those were on node 3, some of them were on node 1. So you can see what happens here is that we read all the data from this table. Sorry, we read all the data from the ranges on node 1, all the data from the ranges on node 3. We pass those things into this thing called a sampler, which I think the way this is working is that it's doing this sketch sampling stuff where we're trying to make these histograms based on not every piece of data, but a sample of it. And we pass all the results of those samplers into this thing called the sample aggregator, and I think that the sample aggregator is the thing that ultimately writes the statistics back to the database so we can query them later. And that's what I'm going to check out next. Do I have a college degree? Yes, I do. I got my Bachelor's of Science in 2011 in computer science. So sample aggregator. I wanted to look at that. Sample aggregator. Okay, so this is the sample aggregator. This is how it works. It's got a loop, I guess. The loop reads samples from the input, something like that. It looks like it does some checks to see whether it's been canceled. Oh yeah. Mr. Wormhole, what's up? Doing good. Ask away. So yeah, I think the way this is working is that the sampler can output a few different kinds of information. Inverted sketches, inverted samples, samples, and sketches. And I think that, yeah, so, okay, write results. Inserts the new statistics into system.tablestatistics. So here's a good question then. Let's take a look at system.tablestatistics, right? Show create system.tablestatistics. To be able to run Elasticsearch nodes in a reliable way, should we have at least 3 nodes running? I have 0% of an idea about that. I have no idea. Are there any other Elasticsearch experts in chat who know about this? It just depends on the architecture. 3 is the magic number. It could be, depends on the project. There's a lot of different variables that can go into stuff like that that I wouldn't feel qualified to speculate on specifically for Elasticsearch. Okay, so taking a look at public.tablestatistics, looks like we've got a table ID in there. We've got a statistic ID. We've got a name. Ah, yes. So check out this. Check out this. You see how it's got this column IDs row. This is, or column rather. This is kind of what got me into trouble last time. It doesn't really feel like there's a good way to find a place to write table-specific information that isn't scoped by a set of column IDs in this table. So I didn't know how to proceed. And in fact, I still don't really know how to proceed here, besides making just a different table for it. You know what I mean? Like, I suppose you could make a protocol up. Well, it's also not null, right? So you could make a protocol up that's like, just give me the information from any statistic for the table or something, but that also feels a little bit wrong. So check out how this works, by the way. It's the primary key of this table statistics table is table ID comma statistic ID, which is interesting because it sort of implies that when you fetch statistics about a table, you know the statistic ID that you're fetching, which is surprising. Unless maybe what you do is you scan over all of the statistics for a given table. I guess I don't know. We can find that out too. Let's do that next. So let's search for select from system Okay, so this is delete stats. It's not quite right. We need to figure out where we get stats. So show stats, fine, but what about like the stats cache? Now this is seeming pretty good. So get table stats from DB, retrieves the statistics in system.tablestatistics for the given table ID. So it does kind of feel to me like we could easily add a special statistic to this table that's scoped by all column IDs, and we could update that every time or something. I don't know. It seems a little bit weird to me. I don't understand enough about how the automatic statistics really work to say whether this is possible or not. Gohaku and LTJR, by the way, thank you for the follows. So one question I have is, I know that there's got to be some way that we prune old statistics, right? So I'm wondering how that exactly works. Delete old stats for column. That actually happens during the sample aggregator. And the way that this works is what? It says delete from table statistics where table ID and column IDs equals blah, and statistic ID not in. I mean, honestly, I wonder whether we should just have a separate table for this. I don't know. Should everyone learn consensus algorithms to call themselves that they are interested in distributed computing? I just don't understand some backend devs that say that they're interested in distributed stuff, but all they do is CRUD stuff. I mean, I don't know consensus like I couldn't, if you asked me how Raft works, I could tell you in very, very, very vague terms. I don't know the details of it. I feel like I could learn it if I needed to, right? Like, you know, you can go to the website and learn about it and stuff, but it's not something that I have like loaded up in my hot cache of things that I understand, right? So I almost think that the answer is definitely no, right? Like I have not quote unquote learned consensus algorithms, and I'm definitely interested in distributed computing. I also think that like, yeah, I'll say that like one thing that you'll start to understand as you do more and more stuff in the world of cloud, I guess, is that there's so many things that go into a distributed system that really almost anything that you do these days that involves, you know, cloud resources is that would count as, you know, an interest in distributed computing. I want to say, like, understanding Lambda functions, for example. Like, on the one hand, yes, that's sort of like a serverless platform that allows you to just quote unquote just write code and have that code execute in certain ways. Like, yes, it's true that you're sort of quote unquote just writing that code, but in order to understand how that fits into an architecture, I mean, you have to understand so much about how AWS functions and how the like queue that you're using functions and all this stuff that it's like, to me, that is distributed computing. It doesn't have to be the core consensus stuff that, you know, only really a few folks. And it's not like an elitism thing either. Like, in my opinion, its stuff is interesting, but it's really just as equally interesting as many other random computer science problems. I wouldn't say that the people who know consensus are like the best programmers or something like that. You know, it's just one kind of programmer, I think, in my opinion anyway. Should everyone learn how transistors work to call themselves interested in computers? What's up, Ruffy? Keep in mind, distributed computing includes a lot of other stuff, not just consensus. Exactly. I completely agree with what you're saying there. Yeah. It's a big, wide world. You know, it's like a rising tide lifts all boats is how I think of it. The more people do computing stuff, it's not like it's not a zero-sum game is basically what I'm trying to say. The game of learning how the cloud works and making websites and web properties is, there's always more work to be done. You know what I mean? You're not going to be in danger of of like getting crowded out because you don't understand one random kind of algorithm. Anyway, need to figure out about this stuff. I think maybe what we should do, speaking of Ruffy, hello Ruffy, is we can get one of these commits done that isn't so dependent on this more complicated implementation that we maybe don't feel so confident about merging. So why don't we just go ahead and do that to get something off of our plate, then we can come back to thinking about how we should store these physical statistics. Stash this. Go ahead and make a new branch for this, I think. Say git checkout, call it ranges, ranges include schema in ranges, and we'll reset back to the commit that we had that, you know, just does the simpler thing here. If you remember from last time, the idea with this was just that we didn't qualify the information about these internal ranges table by the schema, which is problematic because everything can be schema qualified in this world that we live in now. So that's what we did in this commit. Honestly, I think this commit is basically ready to go. So we'll just push it up in its new branch. And we will go ahead and PR it. Understand that's the reason why it's S applied for a role. About distributed systems as some sort of consensus algorithm that I had no clue about. Interesting. A blockchain meme job? Wow, dude, the shade. I hope that you didn't say in your interview when they were like, okay, Mr. Wormhole, so tell me, what made you interested in applying to, you know, blockchain LTD? And you're like, well, basically I thought that it was an interesting blockchain meme job. So please give me the memes. Mighty Core 1, what is up? Okay, so I'm gonna send this out just as such. You just said you didn't know. I think that's a good choice. Better to say that you don't know than to try to mumble through. Oh man, I have an embarrassing story about an interview. One time, one of my first job interviews when I was leaving college was at this place that was asking me about, you guys know about the TLB? I think that stands for Translation Look Aside Buffer. And it's something to do with how the page table works, I think. I think it's essentially a cache for the page table in Linux. And so this guy was like, so tell me, Jordan, what is the TLB and how does it function? And I was like, and I like tried to mumble through something like that. And it was brutal, dude. Like, it was really embarrassing because I sort of said some crap like that and he kept like asking me deep questions. It was embarrassing, dude. Really bad. Did they ask you how to do memory address translations? No, they didn't. That would have been bad too, for sure. Yeah, I think people can ask hard interview questions. That sometimes happens in life, and sometimes you don't get the job. It's just sometimes you have a bad day, and you know it's tough for both sides, right? Because they've only got the limited time to get the signal out. And if you want to be the kind of job that asks what a TLB is and then rejects a person if they don't know, then that's absolutely your prerogative. That is absolutely your prerogative. And you know, that company, it turns out that it did very well. So I suppose maybe they were onto something by screening me out at that point. It's definitely a possibility. Interviews are always meme. Especially one with the HR. Is it normal that you get asked a HR question by an HR department? That feels a little bit odd, but maybe not. How do you explain what you did in your previous job without getting technical? Maybe it might depend on where you're at in your career, for sure. But that does sound challenging. Okay, so what can we do about this? What can we do about this? I feel like we have two options here. We could either actually go down the route of like storing new stuff in this table, or we could go down the route of making a new table to store this stuff. Both of those routes seem really difficult. Not gonna lie, that seems like quite a lot of work. The other route that we could theoretically do. Okay, so look, let's take a look at one other thing really quick here. So if I run up my demo, and I go to the, whoops, binary built without web UI. Okay, that's always annoying. Okay, let's, we're gonna start up our GCE worker here. GCE worker. And so for this is just our instance that we like to use in the cloud while we do stuff that takes a bunch of effort for the computer. So my computer just doesn't crash. You guys know how that works. And once we've got that going, we will simply load up the web UI so we can actually go to it from our local machine. We'll just, you know, one of these SSH tunnels, right? Okay, so cd go source GitHub. Make a screen session. We'll start our cockroach instance. Over here, we will make an SSH tunnel. I think we actually want to be pointing it to port 8080 because that's where our DB console is at. Okay, so I guess we have the same issue over here. We need to, you know what we can do is we can run with one of the actual production binaries, so we don't have to rebuild this whole thing. Cockroach. Okay, I haven't done this in a bit. Let's download Cockroach DB 20.2. Download the Linux binary here so that we can play around with the official binary that we've published here. So we'll say wget this thing, tar zxbf cockroach v20.2.4. Okay, so if I say cockroach start single node insecure, and then hopefully I should be able to go to the DB console, right? Cool. Cool. Over here, cockroach SQL insecure. We'll say create table A, B as select G from generate series like this. Okay, so the whole point of this was just to say that I think theoretically we support a way of getting the statistics for the tables. Hilariously, this seems to say that we're at replicated size 0, which seems very wrong. I'm wondering if this just takes time to populate or something like that. Because I know that it's kind of weird because actually this size here, it's not fed from the MVCC stats. It's not fed from the SQL table statistics. It's probably fed from something else, right? And so the question is, what is it fed from? It's well, we already know what it's fed from. It's fed from this other method that we were looking at earlier that I guess I just don't quite understand yet, like how that's actually working under the hood, even though we talked about it a little bit already. It's like the span stats thing, right? Span stats. I guess the question that I don't understand is like, is this thing, to what extent is it cached or whatever? Span stats response. Last question I have is, do you use a mapper for structs in CockroachDB? Are you talking about like ORM kind of thing, mappers? Internally, externally? The protobufs that we use end up getting property mapping. I think you're talking about how to take table data and stick it into native GoStruct, right? What's up, Lithium? Does Cockroach change its join strategy based on statistics from the tables? Yes. Yes, that's a very important part of why we collect table statistics for the database. It's to change the joins. It's to change query plans to be most efficient. Internally for structs, not really. Well, there's a lot of different places that we do stuff that's related to that. Like there's some places where we unmarshal JSON directly to GoStructs, and I think we do use some kind of Go property mapper for that. There's some places where we just pull out data raw from SQL drivers without doing any kind of mapping. And the protobuf deserializer, I guess, is code generation is the way it works. So I don't know. The answer is like a little bit of yes, a little bit of no. MSAL, what's up? Have you had any problems with the garbage collector? Definitely. The garbage collector is pretty good in Go. It's very good, I would say. But certainly there are circumstances where we run into some issues with its maybe not keeping up with the amount of garbage that we're creating. And that can lead to memory pressure and sometimes even out of memory conditions. Especially for parts of the database that need to use a lot of memory, like SQL execution and SS table compaction, storage stuff, bulk imports, stuff like that. It's a perennial topic on the stream too, I would say, memory management. I think we have some plans there to improve the situation, especially for SQL execution, to instead of relying on the Go garbage collector and memory allocator to instead produce a big pool of memory at the front of the database's startup and use that directly. So sort of like a little mini custom allocator just for the purposes of SQL execution. We think that that'll probably improve the story a little bit, at least for SQL execution. Sync.pool. Yeah, the trouble is
over 1,000 data banks throughout the world.
I think sync.pool is a fine way of doing some of this object caching, especially for like Go objects. I think for it doesn't always give you the most control. I think, like, for example, if you wanted to reserve a big memory pool of size like 2 gigabytes or something like that and never give it up, I don't think sync.pool would really let you do that. And that's kind of what we want to do. Like, say at the front of the program, say, give me 4 gigabytes of SQL memory to use. Chunk that up into vectors and then reuse it over and over throughout the lifetime of the program. That's kind of what the allocator would do. TT7N4, thank you for the follow. Okay, so compute stats for keyspan. That's what this is. That's what we're trying to look at. This is, I'm fairly sure, what the DB console ends up retrieving when it asks for statistics on how big tables are. Let's see, if I refresh, do I get a different replicated size here? Load stats. Still says 0. What's up with that? Is that expected? Let's see, maybe if I made a table, create table B, A int primary key, B string, and I said insert into B, select 1, repeat, A. So let's make a 1 megabyte data column. So 1000 would be 1 kilobyte, and if I add another 1,000 there, I'll get to 1 megabyte, right? So if I refresh, hopefully I should have a 1 megabyte table, right? What the heck? What is up with this? What am I missing here? Who knows about this? Who knows about this situation? DB console table size. You're gonna consult my blog post on how to stream? Awesome. Let me know if you have any questions. It's kind of due for an update. I feel like I've changed a little bit about my setup, the way that I've done things since I started. I probably ought to update it at some point. But I'm not sure when I'm gonna do that. Don't feel forced? Okay, I won't feel forced. I'm a little bit confused and concerned about this situation though, I have to say. Maybe it's like, it's below some threshold. Maybe if I like, okay, let's insert some more data. Okay, we're gonna insert a 10 megabyte blob. Zero bytes. 0 bytes. Perhaps it doesn't work if it's... Dude, what the heck? Something feels deeply wrong. I wonder if there's something that I did wrong here. Do you think it's because it's somehow... How is this metric calculated? Page not found. Oh my gosh. Guys, so many crises. So many crises. You guys want to file some bugs? I feel like we're gonna file some bugs. Okay, I'm gonna file a bug right now. Okay, here's the bug. It's called, it's gonna be called What's up, Archer? Just add a slash instead of a... Oh, yeah? You sure about that? Doesn't seem right. Network tab on the React app. Okay, let me just quickly do this. I'm gonna file this bug, then we'll go back to that idea. Okay, so we're gonna say UI link to explain this metric. Is that how it is called? It's called how is this metric calculated? Looks like this. There is a link called how is this metric calculated when hovering over the I think it's the disk capacity or something. Is that what it is? It's the capacity usage column header on the cluster overview page. Cluster overview page. It goes to the following URI. This URI appears to no longer exist. Perhaps it was moved during the docs site redesign. UI team is thinking how should we backfire to backend people after this issue with bugs. Okay, wait, huh? UI cluster. What am I doing wrong then? Oh, admin UI cluster overview versus UI cluster overview page. My goodness, that's tricky. Not gonna lie, that's a little tricky. However, it appears that it was moved to here. Perhaps this was done during the docs site redesign. I'm guessing that maybe we could add a redirect to the docs page here or something like that rather than change what, yeah, I mean, to be honest, kind of have to do that. Can't really change what's baked into the 20.2 binary at this point. So I think what I'll do here is actually file this under the docs repo. We do have an open source docs repo as well. So let me make that happen instead. So I'm gonna go over here, go to this docs repo, make an issue here. We can just copy the issue over to the other repo instead. GitHub does allow you to sort of move an issue, but it's like a little bit weird to do that. So it's a little better to just do it right the first time. Please let me know if I've gotten something wrong here. Okay. I don't know what I should tag this as example exactly. Well, I'll just try this, see what happens. Repro'd the thing about size being 0 bytes. When I restarted my cluster, then the size became correct. That is interesting. What's up, Data David? You like the new keyword camera angle? Thank you. Potato Turtle, how's it going? Do you want me to fix it? I can say I contributed to CRDB and then consult database companies. Yes, you should. I hope that you should submit all the PRs if you want. Okay, so let's see what Ruffy was saying here. You're saying that if I go to the, well, first, there's a couple things we want to do. First, we wanted to check the React page. Nikon, what's up? We wanted to check the React page to see what actually comes up in network, right? Let's just do it in the normal network tab though, just because I feel like it. So I click refresh, I click stats here. Okay, so it's some protobuf. I guess you're probably right. We would need to use some sort of fancy thing. I thought I had some kind of React dev tool thing installed. Didn't I? At some point I had that. It seems to be gone. I might have to reinstall that at some point. Anyway, Ruffy's saying that if I restart the cluster, it'll go away though. So let's kill this. Start it up again. And now go back over here, refresh the page, click load stats. Oof, big yikes. My friends, this is quite a yikes, but at least it's reproducible, right? It seems pretty simple. So why don't we make a new issue for this one too? Wow, Archer, I like that little combine emote. I think, didn't I, it's kind of funny, I submitted the new emote, but they still haven't approved it. It's kind of weird. Like, I thought that emote approval was like fast these days, but it's still sitting in the queue. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. Anyway, so here's what we're gonna file bug-wise. We're gonna say UI. We're gonna say UI. Table statistics appear. Table size statistics appear are always 0 until a node restarts after a table is created. Ooh, is that actually true though? Let's find out. So let's see, like definitely it's the case for these old tables. Now, what if I were to make a new table, create table C, a int, a, let's say a S as select 1, repeat A, stick a bunch of A characters into this table. Now if I go back over here and then load stats, the question is, what do I get? Whoa, okay, that is actually super weird. Is it just the very first time the cluster loads or something? That's actually pretty weird, right guys? I was kind of expecting that it would be the table being created for the first time that would cause the issue, not the database. So that's a little odd. Nikon says, my coworkers are asking me to use DI everywhere. I don't know what to say about that. That sounds annoying. Unless everybody uses DI everywhere else at the company, so maybe it's fine. Maybe if the database has no tables. Yeah, so let's make a new database then. Create database derp. And we'll say create table derp.cas as select 1, repeat A. What did I do? What happened here? Oh, I see. I put the... Wait, what did happen here? There we go. Oh, I put a random quote or something. One too many quotes, yeah. You guys are right. Okay, so refreshing this, we now have a derp, and the derp, it's also got the right replicated size. So it's a mystery. But Ruffy says, I just did the create new table thing you did and it shows 0 bytes for me. Okay, so there's definitely something like flaky, crappy going on over here, right? I don't know what to say about that. I don't know what to say. Out of curiosity, right? I did want to check out like what actually happens though when that quest gets triggered, right? What it's called, like what? Load stats for all tables. So we search for what that's doing. RD load stats for all. Does that come up anywhere? Load stats for all tables. Load table details. Load table details. So what this seems to do is it runs something called refresh table stats. Okay, and refresh table stats. Refresh table stats. Okay, and that comes from something called table stats reducer object. We dropped Golang. No, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know what I'm doing. Just doing it for fun. Okay, so API reducers. Dive into TypeScript. We've done it before on the stream. It's gone okay. It's gone fine. Get table details, request message. Okay, so that gets us to the bottom. Table details response message now is going to be what? Oh, get rid of message. Table details response is going to be the thing that actually comes back from our server. And if we go there, then we're going to get table details, and this is what it was all coming from. Oh my gosh. Okay, what a long chain of events. And honestly, I'm actually a little confused because I didn't think that this is actually the thing that even contained the estimate, right? Table details response. I thought it has range count, but it doesn't have the. Okay, I did something wrong here. Something sort of went wrong. Okay, let's come back. Let's come back over here. Oh, wait. You guys. Database tables. index.tsx. I was also using 20.2 though. Load table details. Yeah, this is a bit confusing. I'm a little confused. Okay, let's just carefully read this again. Ah, it's the table stats request, is it? So I missed that, I guess. Okay, so table stats request, on the other hand, presumably will be served by this thing that we expected. Generate table span and stats for span. Okay. I'm doing TypeScript again. Yeah, nobody wants to see me do TypeScript. It's super embarrassing because like I really don't know what I'm doing, but hopefully it's okay. Hopefully we'll just get muddled through together. Yaks, absolute high levels of yaks, Rail. Okay, anyway, so stats for span. Stats for span. This takes a span. So in CockroachDB, a span is just a range of, not to be confused with like the concept of a range, but just like the, you know, general idea of things between two other things. A span is the keys in between two keys in a sorted way, if that makes sense. A roachpb.span, it's got a key and an end key, and it takes everything, all of the keys that sort lexicographically in between the key and the end key. So what this stats for span thing does is, I guess it's getting a span as input, and as output it's giving you back all of the statistics about that span of data, including range count, replicate count, node count, stats, and most importantly, it's this approximate disk bytes. This is like the holy grail that we've been looking for, right? So yeah, I guess what I don't understand, yeah, how do we actually get that information? That's the question. That's what we wanted to figure out here. Approximate disk bytes plus equals response dot approximate disk bytes. And so this is where we're actually iterating over a bunch of responses, one per node. This is not so obvious, honestly. Okay, span stats accepts a key span and a node ID and returns a set of stats summed from all ranges on the source on that node which contain keys in that span. So it's a fan out to every node of the cluster, I guess, is what that's saying, which is, I would say it's not great. But I think, to be honest, what we should probably do is, instead of like redefining all of this stuff and adding new statistics to new tables and stuff like that, honestly, I kind of think that like this PG built-in thing should probably just like do this for now, since we already do have a way to do it, right? I don't know. Is that silly? The Ipanema music, yeah. TypeScript is a good choice if you're using with GraphQL stuff. It's kind of weird. This playlist I'm using, it claims to be like DMCA free, but I don't think it really is. Like, obviously that's like a super famous copyrighted piece of music, right? So just out of curiosity, let's say we go back to PG built-ins where we've done this thing. And instead of doing this thing where we scan the meta KVs and we do all this stuff, what if we were to say, you know, what if we were to just call this admin API? Is it possible to even do that? How do I get a handle onto this admin server thing from here? I don't know if that's actually a thing that we're sort of allowed to do. I don't think it really is. I think we would have to like plumb in a new method onto the planner, which is like the main way that we can escape into the world from this eval.go thing. Not the expert of TypeScript, but I was traumatized by the inconsistency of TypeScript. Eval context is still here. Yep. Eval context will never die. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to be too easy to get back into that admin server thing. I don't know. I do think that would be like by far the most straightforward way to make this happen though. So I suppose I could just like try, I could just like plummet through to see if something what is this? Compact engine span? Like, it does sort of seem like people are just putting all sorts of random stuff onto this planner because they can, right? Like, so I feel like we might as well do that here as well. So I'll just try it out. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be called basically like table stats. It's going to look like this, presumably. So it'll be like, I feel like table stats is kind of a weird way to say it because that just got so many other meanings to it. So I'll call it like, admin table stats maybe. And then I'll just copy these same parameters here. Okay, so for a comment, admin table, whoops, I still need to keep that. Admin table stats collects information about, I'll just copy this same doc string here, collects detailed computationally expensive information about a table. Note, this fans out to other nodes in the database. Okay. So given all that, we need to actually implement it. So I think that where we implemented it is probably on this big planner thing, right? Member of with admin option. So we can stick this in, not exactly sure where this would go. I mean, we have, one kind of weird thing is we've got this big giant mega object called the planner that has like a ton of random methods on it. And the implementations of the methods are like scattered across a lot of different files in this package. So I'm not exactly proud of this at all, but it is kind of what it is. So I wonder what would be an appropriate file to stick this
Computers hooked into over 1,000 data banks.
Quasar, thank you for the follow. Oh yeah, Quasar, you're asking about the keyboard? I've got a little command for that. So that's all the information you might want to know. There's got to be some kind of like statistic thing or like some kind of, I don't know. Suppose I could just make a new file for it.
Computers hooked into over 1,000 data banks.
Talbot IE, thank you for the follow. I'll just make a new file for it, I guess. I don't know. Feels a little random, but that's fine. We'll call it table stats. We'll call it size stats or something. I don't know. That's a bad name. And so then we can go ahead and implement our new function, admin table stats, directly onto this planner object, func p planner, admin table stats. And what it's going to do is reach back out, and hopefully the planner is going to have a way to actually, what's going on here? My IDE is just not keeping up, or Confused about why my fancy nice autocomplete's failing me right now. I'm so reliant on the fancy fast autocomplete here. That's okay. Well, it catches up. I think maybe in this executor config thing, we should be able to access any kind of missing and opening curly brace. Is that the issue? That is indeed the issue. Okay, I'm feeling pretty smart right now. Thank you, Archer. Okay, so p dot exec cfg dot. I think there's some way of reaching back out, isn't there? SQL status server. SQL status server. We have all these different gRPC endpoints. That's kind of this thing here. We've just got to find a way to reach back around to this one, this admin server table stats thing. So where does admin server live exactly? Maybe we can find out. New admin server, sadmin. It goes into the status server, which I think we do have an access to that, right? SQL status server dot. But that thing, I guess, is a smaller subset of all of that. If I were to learn something, try Rust, Redux. It's a smaller version of the server PB status interface, which only, okay. So I could probably add stuff to this, right? It seems fine, right? Feels a little messy, but I think that's, I guess that's fine, right? And there's also this tenant status service business, which is another thing that we have to think about here. Since the idea with that is that, Cockroach is now going to be runnable in this sort of multi-tenant environment. And in a multi-tenant environment, you might not have access to all the nodes in the cluster. And that could be a serious problem for this particular thing that we're looking at, couldn't it? Tenant status server. How does this thing work? Tenant status server is an implementation of a SQL status server that's available to tenants. The full status server is unavailable. Local only. Well, that's terribly bad, but I guess such is life. Maybe we'll just not be able to get the table size in this multi-tenant environment. Pretty frustrating for people. Probably a good reason to think about doing it with this other method that we were talking about earlier, where we store the table statistics in the table statistics table and not do this fan out stuff, which is already bad in the first place. Is it code for Cockroach Cloud or something? Yeah. It's all, it's all open source stuff, but we kind of have this multi-tenant mode that you can use Cockroach in that's available in the source code. I feel like probably given this, I don't know. I mean, I feel sad to give up, but ultimately, I just think that it would be a little bit sad to make this thing, implement it this way. It's going to fan out and then it doesn't work in multi-tenant. Just feels a little wrong. But then again, on the other hand, if I try to move towards storing it into some stable table statistics file, well, it's just a much bigger project, and it feels like it's at risk of me not being able to do it myself or anything like that. It kind of feels like it would be work that should be scheduled and not just kind of thrown together on a Friday. Well, maybe I'll write some of
Computers
this
hooked
up.
into over 1,000 data banks throughout the world.
Oh yeah, first let's file this issue. Our sometimes 0. Is this like a completely nonsensical English sentence? Table size statistics are sometimes 0. In DB console after a table is created until a node restarts. This is the docs repo. Thank you for that. Oh man, I heard something really, really cool, you guys, which is that there's a beta feature, I think, that they're testing in GitHub that's going to make it so that when you click new issue, you know how you can, we've got these sort of forms in a way, like, you can say, oh, I want to do a bug or crash report, or I want to do a feature request. This is actually cool stuff. You can configure this just by editing a file in your repo. Anybody can do this on GitHub. I think it's pretty cool. But they're about to add a much better feature, which is called actual like forms inside of a bug request. So instead of like when I click this, we've sort of like written some text here where it's like, please describe the problem and like reproduce and like do these steps and stuff like that, expected behavior. But it's like there's nothing that forces people to fill this stuff out. It's just sort of like we're hoping that people will be kind to us. I think what they're doing is they're adding an actual way to have required fields and have different text boxes in there, and that's going to be a way of making the issues that get filed a lot more uniform. So looking forward to that from GitHub. Okay, so back to our new issue here. Oh, I'm not a beta tester. I just saw this on Twitter. So if I leaked something, it's because somebody else leaked it to Twitter first. Good loophole, right? Just search on Twitter. I think I even responded to a tweet about it. Yeah. Okay. So to repro, let's see, how am I going to say this? Sometimes in the summary page of the DB console, the byte size information. Is it on the summary page? It's actually not the summary page. On the databases tables page. The table sizes, man, like failing to really know the name of this. Okay, it's called the replicated size column. The replicated size column for each table shows 0 bytes. I reproduced this by creating a new single node cluster, making a table and making a new table and trying to load its replicated size via the above page. But after I restarted the node, the replicated size column started displaying the correct information. So I guess I'll stick this. And now I'm going to put it there. And yeah, okay. Submit this, and then we can go back and try to figure out. Oh yeah, I kind of want to write up the ideas about storing the table statistics in this issue, and then maybe we could move on to something slightly else. But first, I'm going to take a quick 1-minute break. I'll be right back, you guys. Stay with me. Hey guys, back. No Husty, thank you for the follow, by the way. All right. I suppose I'm kind of interested. Why do you think that that bug happens, actually? Maybe we could try to figure that out. I'm interested in the answer. I think maybe what we should actually do here, how about this for an idea? What we're gonna do is we're gonna plumb through this sort of basic implementation of, still missing context. The bug is that table sizes are sometimes 0 in the DB console after a table is created until a node restarts. Let's try to reproduce it just so we can understand if it actually reproduces or not. So we're gonna go here, we're gonna kill our database. We're going to, let's actually just wipe the cockroach data. Just start up a new node here. We're gonna go over here. We're going to make a new table. Create table B. Create table A, add select GG from generate series. So this is just making a new table with some data in it. Then if I go to the web UI DB console, refresh here, click load stats, and you can see here that the replicated size is 0. And that is no good because the replicated size is certainly not actually 0. It's actually something else. By the way, has anybody encountered this problem lately with Mac where it used to be that you can do this screenshotting thing really seamlessly, but lately it feels like really flaky. Sometimes when you do it, it just lets go before you even let go. I don't know. I've been frustrated with that lately. Something changed recently in their OS or something. There's an app called Annotations. You can do screen grabs. Yeah, but I just like the shortcut. It's like burned into my muscle memory. So if I make another table, it's going to be the same problem, I think. Make another table. Go back over here. Refresh. Load stats. Huh. That didn't happen the first time. Something kind of weird. Definitely something kind of weird. Screenshot plugin from Google Chrome. You don't think you're having that problem on Catalina, safe to type? Catalina. Yeah, I don't know. The first table of a namespace or the first table of a cluster? Well, last time I tried it, it was actually the first 2 tables of the cluster. So it's actually still a mystery what's actually going on here. Still a mystery. So I guess I was thinking what I would do is maybe what we could do to debug it is that we would implement this sort of built-in function as a sort of fan out, like we don't really want to do, but we'll just do it for the purposes of testing and see actually just what happens. So I'm just gonna push through with this to see what it's like, and we may not end up committing it on the other hand. Okay, so right. So we're gonna make a new function here called func s status. Oh, it's in fact, isn't it this span stats thing? Isn't it exactly the span stats thing? No, I see the admin server fans out to this on every node in the cluster. That's like pretty tricky. So it's really gonna be like, I forget what it's called, like table stats. And then what it returns is s.admin.table stats context rec. Okay, so do this. It's gonna be ctx context.context rec server pb.table stats request. And it's gonna return a server pb.table stats response and an error. You're on 10.15.6, patch behind. Maybe it was a recent update. Yeah, it was fairly recent. I wouldn't say like super recent, but this should be table stats response. Okay, so we'll just say Okay, so then back up here in our SQL status server, we can just pull this definition up one level. Just some interface threading, you guys. Super fun stuff. Super, super fun stuff. Okay. And then I think ultimately we're going to have a problem where we didn't implement this on the tenant status server, but maybe we can just ignore that for now. I'm not exactly sure. We will find out. Going to sleep. Lithium, thanks for hanging out. I'll talk to you later. Okay, so we'll run table stats here, and we'll just pass in our context and rec. Okay, that was very not so complicated after all. It was like 5 lines of code, just a lot of threading. Thanks a lot. Calls table stats on the, well, I'll just probably copy the doc string again. That's what we tend to do. All right, so then way back in PG built-ins, I think at this point we should finally be able to actually call this thing from our built-in function. We can say planner dot status, what is it called? No, it's just ctx dot, wait, I thought we had a path now to get there. That's annoying. I thought we had a path to get there. What did I miss here? Oh yeah, we were going to call it admin table stats. Okay, and then this thing is implemented by, okay, so we do have it. Planner.admin table stats of, okay, so then we get to call in context. We get to make a new table stats request and basically fill it in with our database and table. And I think the schema, the table has to be schema qualified if it wants to be, which it always should be, I guess. And this thing is going to return a response error. If error is not equal to nil, just return no error. We ultimately get to delete all this stuff that we wrote. Sad but true, just not necessary stuff. And let's see. So what do we actually get here? All we have is an OID at this point, so we actually have to turn it into a database and table. So maybe we didn't want to delete quite all that stuff just yet. We need to figure out how to grab the table descriptor for that thing, which I think we can do via our planner also, right? Resolve table. Man, so much plumbing to do, gotta say. This is a plumbing heavy activity here. Do we not have like a resolve table by ID set up anywhere? I guess we don't, huh? We have lookup table by ID. Then the other issue is that I think once we get this descriptor back, isn't it a little bit annoying to get the schema name and the database name? We'll get their IDs, but not the names. We'll have to do more fetches to get those. I also wanted a resolve table ID by ID so I could improve PD table is visible. Yeah, we should just be able to have that, I feel. It's annoying because of circular dependencies. curiosity, could we just export this? Lookup table by ID. What if I were to say lookup table by ID? Because it looks like this, right? And it gives me back what? It gives me back, oh, didn't copy that part of it. It gives me back a table descriptor and an error, huh? So look up table by ID context. And the table ID will be this desk ID dot dint. And I've got a deskpb.id this thing, deskpb.id. This needs to take a context, but it's the wrong type of context. Okay, we're getting there. Am I comfortable with this keyboard? Yes, I am indeed. Descriptor error. If error is not equal to nil, return nil error. Okay, so we've got our table descriptor at this point. Now we should be able to say, well, descriptor.getName. We still don't have the database name or the schema name, but I guess we'll have to resolve those next. So we should be able to say descriptor.getParent schema ID. Then I guess we'll have to resolve this thing, right? So we'll have to say ctx.planner.lookup. Guess I need to make a lookup schema by ID thing too. Well, we'll just keep going down the rabbit hole here, and if I'm doing something totally wrong, I'll probably find out later. Could the table stats for this cluster not exist at all, and when the table reports the size and the table stats do not exist, it just ignores it? Yes, it's certainly possible. So I think in this particular case, oh, you're talking about the bug. I think in the case of that bug, it's a bit of a mystery. I think that the stats definitely do exist in a sense, because we're really asking for something that's more heavyweight than just stats. We're sort of like asking for something from like the core of the, storage area. I think there's probably just some caching bug, probably. That'd be my guess. Just not sure what it is. The other context that you might have missed is that we are fixing that bug, but at the same time, we also wanted to implement this way of just getting this information from SQL, whereas it used to be only possible to get it from the DB console. It'd be kind of nice to be able to get it from the command line too. So we're doing both at once. I'm using the latter to maybe as a way to debug the former, just since it's easier to test stuff via SQL than it is via the web UI. So here we're going to have schema ID, database ID. Okay, so we'll just have to implement these things. Okay. So we don't have to worry about this stuff, I don't think, probably.
The data bank's too big. I have to narrow down the search.
Guess maybe we do.
How are you going to do that? By guessing.
Expressman, thank you for the follow. There's a little bit of an issue because we have this situation where there's this public schema thing, right? The public schema in old databases is always hard-coded to be the same ID, I think. So there might be some irritating challenges here. You see how this is all pointing to 29. There's two public schemas and they both have ID 29. I think in the more recent versions of Cockroach, I think we no longer have that problem, but we'll still have to like deal with the fact that Oh, I see. It's the SSH tunnel. It's problematic here. Create table. If I said create database, foo, select star from system.namespace. What do I get again? No, I guess I still have this 29 business, huh? Why did I think we had gotten rid of that? Okay, well, that's a little bit problematic that it's not so easy to do these lookups. I guess for context, what you'd actually need is also the database ID or something like that, right? What? Here's something I truly don't understand then. If I call get immutable schema by ID, if schema ID is equal to keys.public schema ID, we reserve. Okay. So we don't actually have to worry about this. It's all good. We can just delegate that problem to somebody else. Okay. I think that is fine. Got some Spanish up in the chat. Wish I spoke Spanish. I understand some of those words. Okay, so look up schema by ID.
Too big.
Edmund, thank you for the follow.
The search.
And Emacs Erno.
By guessing.
Emacs Erno. Thank you for the follow, my friend. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're having a good day.
Too big. I have to narrow down the search. How are you going to do that? By guessing.
Emacs Erno.
The data bank's too big.
Yeah.
I have to narrow down the search. How are you going to do that? By guessing.
Bad Dose Z, thank you for the follow as well. Oh my gosh, I'm getting all these follows. You guys just blowing up those notifications. Appreciate it all. So look up schema by ID. It's going to look up a schema by the given descriptor ID, blah, blah, blah. Tip the collection cache. I think all of this stuff is true. I don't know if this is relevant. I'm going to delete that. I don't know if we need to think about this stuff because I do know that we have a bunch of virtual schemas, right? And I'm wondering whether we need to think about that for this particular thing. This is a little bit in the weeds, you guys. I'm not gonna lie. I think what I'm gonna do, I'll comment this out. I'll just say to do Jordan, do we need to look up virtual schemas in this method? I just don't actually even know whether these virtual schemas have their own schema IDs, right? I don't think they do, so I just don't think it's actually relevant. I think we can ignore that stuff. Am I using Emacs? I'm actually using Golang. What does context.context mean in Golang? So context.context is this object that it's pretty commonly used in Go to help deal with a few different things. One is cancellation of work. It provides a convenient API to allow routines like deep in some stack to listen on a signal for cancellation. So let's say, for example, in the database, you're doing a query and the user comes and says, stop executing that query because I no longer care about the results. The way that we communicate that to the part of the database that's actually doing the work is via this context.context. Use it for a few other things too, like logging, tags, tracing, and error reporting and stuff like that. It's kind of like a way to put some extra information along the stack, if that makes sense. Okay, so we're gonna get immutable schema by ID. We're gonna pass our context. We're gonna pass our transaction. Virtual schemas do have their special IDs. Do they though? Oh, they're just not in the namespace table. I guess that makes sense. Well, I think I'm gonna still ignore this for now and just see what else happens. So the schema ID will be the table ID, which really should be called schema ID. The flags are going to be these flags. This should say immutable schema by ID. And how come this doesn't? It is a common lookup flags, which means that I guess I just get rid of all this stuff. Yeah. Preston FPOV, I have no idea what's going on. Sorry, this is like, I know it's like super deep in the weeds, super random stuff. Basically, the idea of what we're doing here is that we are attempting to figure out in a SQL built-in function the size of a table. It doesn't seem like it would be that complicated, and yet it is complicated. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting, right? You can see the schema name, the table name, the type. You can see the estimated row count, which there's some issues with this, but it generally kind of works. But what we can't see is like how many megabytes is resident in the database for user promo codes, for example. You know what I mean? Not so easy to set that up. Turns out there's all sorts of problems with it. And we're learning together about how we can improve there. Right now, what we have to do is ask every node in the cluster for how much data it has, or it thinks that it approximately has for a given table. And that's pretty expensive, but we're just doing that anyway because we want to get something going, essentially. So what is wrong with this? This is returning a resolved schema. And what we want is a schema descriptor. So is there a way to get the descriptor out like this? Go, it's in, we're writing in Go. We are writing in Go. If it's expensive, stop making it cost so much. Okay, you're right. Let me call up the controller, the comptroller of this database here. Be like, excuse me, it's a little too expensive. Turn down the costs. Oh, my preferences. I mean, I've been programming in Go for the last like 5 or so years, so I guess at this point I'm pretty used to Go, and I prefer it. So how about that as an answer? What makes it so expensive? Anytime that you have a query that sort of quote unquote fans out to all the nodes in a cluster, it's a quote unquote expensive operation, because if you call it, it just means there's a lot of network traffic. There's a lot of things that you're asking a lot of nodes to do. Example, let's say you had 100 nodes in your cluster. Then if you run this thing, it's going to ask 100 different machines sitting around on the internet what their status is. And you could imagine that maybe those 100 machines are living geographically distributed, you know, East Coast, West Coast, Europe, you know, Asia or something. You might have like a crazy geo-distributed cluster. And so asking all of these different nodes what's up is just going to be an expensive thing based on the amount of time that it takes to go to all of them, ask them to do stuff, blah, blah, blah. Fan outs, you know, fan outs, it's a thing, it's expensive. Trent, could you please take the speed of light faster? Yeah, I'll see what I can do about that one. I don't know. Yeah, I think you guys, it's just about time to turn on my nifty background stream lights to improve the ambiance of the stream. So hopefully my phone will comply with me and do that. Do you ever have like Bluetooth connected lights that just like don't do what you want them to do? I feel like that's my life these days. But anyway, well, maybe that'll fix itself over time. So anyway, we look up our table, we get our, look at that. It only took like 5 minutes for these lights to turn on, but once they did, look at that. Look at this, the glorious glow of the bookshelf. It's just so pretty. There's a couple of things I want to fix. Like, check this out. Ugly, see? Deep ugliness. It's like curving around backwards there. It's like, looks kind of crappy. I got an extension cord. I drilled some holes in the bookshelf. You know, it's like it's a whole project. So hopefully this will improve over time, and I'll have like a really dank looking basement stream background or something like that. Yep. Okay. Anyway, so found a neat trick in my network library. You can send a poll speed. That's interesting. If you set it to -1, it becomes insanely fast. Juice Cop, what's up? Bluetooth is so unstable in general. I'm sick of it. I am 31, Edvin. Okay, so we're gonna get our parent schema ID, then we're gonna look it up. So we're just gonna like do all this for all of the things that we need to do. Look up schema by ID. It's gonna be our schema ID. Guess we don't need to cast this one. This is gonna be our schema. Okay, and then finally we just need to do the database as well. So the same old thing down here, we'll need to say database ID, database, look up database by ID, database ID. I get the sense that maybe I'm doing something wrong here. Like maybe there's a faster way to do all this, but I just don't think there is that I know of anyway. So we're just gonna roll with it for now. So with this, we've just got to implement this in the planner, just like we did before. We can do it down here. So we'll say func p planner, look up database by ID. Okay. Get rid of that. We can say get immutable database ID here, database ID, and yeah, all good. Present F sounds legit. Was just trying to point out why distributed fans out are necessarily slow. Yeah, they are necessarily slow. Okay, so we got our database, we got our schema. Then at long last, we can say database is database dot get name, right? The table now, so this is kind of weird. So like we'll say admin table stats is a little bit weird. Stream died for you? Everything's looking good on my end. Hopefully it's just for you. Okay, glad it's back. Okay, whew. Last time the stream like randomly ended. That really sucked. I don't know if you guys were there for that, but it like, my internet just like lost its upload speed. All of a sudden everything was working. Like I could go to websites, but the stream just like died for no reason. That was a bummer. I tweeted at Comcast and they actually responded to me, but then I ghosted them. I was like, yeah, I don't really care. Like whatever, this shit happens. Like internet dies sometimes, I get it. We don't have a dedicated field to set the schema name in. Instead, we send a qualified table name, meaning a table name that contains a dot and a schema prefix if necessary. Super gross, I want to say, but that's just life, I suppose. Okay, so for this, what we're gonna say, this needs to be ctx dot context. For this, we're gonna say the table will be like, okay, I guess what we should do here is like, I think there's an object. This man is trying to censor you, let people have their databases. Exactly, yeah. Down with Comcast. I think what we're gonna say is like, I think we can make like an object name or something, tree.object name, right? How does this work again? Oh yes, this is a genius quote, Preston. This is, I love you for making this quote. I think I've become biased when people ask for a database to use. I always say Cockroach because I watch your streams and it's usually my go-to for database now. I love that, Preston. You are the man. You are absolutely the man for saying that. And I just don't need a database for anything. Oh, great. This is a good moment. This is a good moment in the stream for sure. Right, I like that a lot. Okay, so let's see. We're gonna make a new, how do I make, isn't there like a way to make a schema qualified table or something like that? Spanners ruin my view on database because I only see problems in other databases. Isn't it like a new table name somewhere kind of thing? Make table name with schema. I feel like I want to use this thing, right? Make table name from with schema, maybe? We can say kind of the nod NL, what is up? How did SQL Lancer work out for you? Did you manage to get it running in CI? SQL Lancer is a great thing, and we have not managed to get it running in CI yet, though. It's we just haven't really had the time. I think one kind of fun thing about SQL Lancer and other randomized testing tools that we have around for CockroachDB, like SQLsmith, random metamorphic testing, things that we've made up ourselves, is that they tend to need people to pay attention and garden them, is the way that I'll say it. And I think that at this point in the companies and databases lifecycle, it almost feels like we have so many tests that there's a lot of mental effort required to like add a whole new regime of testing that needs to be like maintained each day or something like that. And so I think there's a lot of appetite for adding more automatic test runs for CockroachDB, and people are really interested in SQL Lancer in particular. But it's just, we haven't really found the time or motivation to go ahead and add it to CI yet. There's one person that I think is particularly interested in working with SQL Lancer in the next maybe 6 months. So I'm hoping that that person could maybe, yeah, I don't know, make it happen for us, figure out a way to kind of integrate it with our systems and processes and stuff like that in a way that's maintainable. But time in multiple dimensions, yeah, basically. I don't have a Discord. Should I make a Discord, you guys? I don't know. BRKS, working on databases has ruined databases for me. Get to see how the sausage is made. Yeah, it's dangerous, right? Like, you don't want to see too much. It's like, it's dirty in there, you know? The sausage is, it's bloody. Okay, so we're gonna make a table name with schema. The DB is gonna be the database.getName. The schema is going to be the, I mean, honestly, all we need to do here is actually the latter two halves here. This is annoying. The reason that I'm going through these great lengths here, by the way, is just that, like, I could just sort of format.sprintf this thing, but I think that you get some like magic escaping functionality if you do it through this make table name business, and it's better to not have too many implementations of that escaping sitting around, just for your own sanity. So given that, okay, so our table name is going to look like this. Then we can say name dot well, yeah, it's kind of annoying. Like, I really wish that I didn't have to, you know, I think what I'll do here is just make table name, not with schema. And then I'll just, I'll use the schema name as the prefix. And then this way I can just format this into the table name. And I think this will basically work out from here. So here we basically say get name.string. And I think that'll be what we want ultimately. Okay. All right. Hopefully this will work out for us, but I don't know. So then down here we can get rid of this stuff, which is the old method that we will no longer use. We're gonna get our resp, and our resp will have approximate diskbyte. So all you have to do at this point is return tree.newdint of resp.approximate diskbytes, nil for the error. What is wrong with this? This needs to be a tree.dint cast. Always annoying. Okay. Okay. So can we continue from here? Let's go ahead and make a little patch of this. Why don't we? Okay, so we're gonna make a new commit. We're gonna say whip implement total relation size with the approximate disk bytes method. Okay, this commit isn't going to actually go anywhere, but I'm just pushing it up so that I can run the tests from my remote machine here. What the heck? Confused about what's going on in this terminal. This is my SSH tunnel terminal, so I guess it's just, oh, the database stopped running. That's what happened, I guess. I don't know. I think I switched the orders of the ports is probably what happened there. Okay, so anyway, back to here. We're gonna go source cockroach, no, github.com, cockroachdb, cockroach, git fetch. We need to do git fetch mine. Reminds me of this post about Oracle database. Submit the changes to a test farm consisting of about 100 to 200 servers that would compile. The code would build a new Oracle DB and run the millions of tests in a distributed fashion. Go home, come up the next day and work on something else. The test can take 20 hours to 30 hours to complete. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Dear Lord, that sounds horrible. In my case, at least it's a small part of a big database and Go with a quick test suite. What database are you talking about? B. Burks? This is what happens. All business, no engineering. Developers can never prioritize code cleanup. How different is CockroachDB from MySQL? The main difference between CockroachDB and a traditional single node RDBMS is that CockroachDB is a distributed SQL database, which means that you can run it on more than one node. You can make a cluster of database nodes that automatically replicate, automatically provide resilience, and still keep that sort of ACID transaction style of thing that you're used to, referential integrity and all that good stuff that you're used to from a classic RDBMS. It's just distributed. I don't know if that made sense, but that's the basic difference there. It also speaks more of a Postgres dialect than a MySQL dialect. That's another difference, but just architecturally, the difference is that one is sort of a single node database, unless you want to set up sort of the traditional, leader follower replication where things lag behind. CockroachDB, things stay consistent. There isn't any kind of like follower lag like you sometimes have with the old school MySQL replication protocol stuff. For Postgres, same thing. You're at Couchbase? Oh, that's so cool. Mobile IoT, it sounds very interesting. I don't know too much about Couchbase, but I've certainly heard a lot about it. That's why I just serialize my structs to binary, then just save that to disk. Nice. Biggest pain in migrating MySQL to Cockroach is no case-insensitive indexes. Yes, I know this is a big pain in your behind, Nikon. I think we've talked about that like weird case-insensitive collation workaround thing, but I think there's problems with that too, from what I recall. So we've got to definitely improve on that front. I would agree. Okay, so let's see. Get reset hard mine pg table size. Okay, so let's go ahead and make build. Okay, there's some problems. Can't make a request in offline mode. What? Inconsistent vendoring? Uh-oh. Well, that doesn't sound good. Do I just need to wipe out whatever changes are here? Git status. Do I just do git submodule update init? Git status. Okay, let's try again. Will that fix things? Okay, thank goodness. Whenever I get that inconsistent vendoring thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I gonna be able to even figure out what was going on here myself? Or am I gonna need to get some help? That's always a confusing error message to get. Well, this doesn't look good either. Ooh, okay, so it looks like actually what I've done is introduce some sort of import cycle. Okay, sick. Well, that's great to hear. So it looks like I'm not allowed to import server PB from semtree. Well, good thing that we found out about that way late. So let's see what I did. So server PB package SQL semtree, right? Okay. Well, what am I going to do about this exactly? 3098.
Database.
Well, I guess this isn't so bad, right? All I have to do here is change this to, instead of pushing in a full request, I can just say, table name string I'll say schema qualified table string, and then that's all I need to send in as a request. So we don't actually really need to use server PB. There's no need for it. And then as a response, I mean, honestly, I don't even care about the rest of the stuff. All I want is approximate disk byte, so I'll just return int, int64. Wait, right? It's a uint64. So I'll just return this uint64. And I'll say, instead of admin table stats, we'll call it admin table approximate size. That's the dependency cycle you were worried about? Rip. I think we can fix this. I think we're gonna be fine. Fanny Snackman, thank you for the follow. Does Cockroach TV have any hidden Easter eggs? I think it has at least one, but I'm not gonna tell you what it is. Okay, so approximate size. Oh yeah, so this is gonna go into our new stats file, right? eval.go. No, wait, what? Wait, what was the name of that file again? Size stats, I called it. Can I give you a hint? No. I just should copy this actually. I don't know why. You don't feel like looking through possibly hundreds of files of Go? I think that's what I would call your problem. Yeah. So here I'm gonna say, so we're gonna make a server pdb dot table stats request, database name, table name, schema qualified table name. Anything can be an Easter egg if you look at it the right way. Exactly. All you have to do is find our bug list, and then each of those bugs is actually just an Easter egg. If you think about it. So here we're gonna return resp dot, wait, can I dereference this, or is this a pointer? This thing is a pointer. Okay, so we'll have to say if error is not equal to nil, return 0 error, otherwise return resp dot approximate disk bytes error. No. Time to waste my time looking through every single file in the GitHub repo and doing a regex match for the word Easter egg and surprise. Yep. Okay, so let's go back over here. We'll say git fetch mine, git reset hard. Okay, try again. Okay, it's the exact same problem somehow. Import stack, docgen, desk pb is imported by, oh, you can't import catalog from tree now. Is that the problem? Seems a little bit, oh. I see. This is the much more significant problem. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, this is not a good situation, is it? Well, I suppose I could just call it lookup table name by ID, lookup schema name by ID, lookup database name by ID. That's all I need. That's what's happening over here. We're getting parse qualified table name, getting back a table name. I don't know. Feels a little derpy, maybe, but. Well, I guess we'll just try this for now. You'll be heading off now? Okay, Preston, good luck finding the Easter eggs. Let us know if you find anything good. All right, so, whoops. So what if I change these things to say lookup schema name, lookup table name? I feel like it'll probably be fine, maybe. So this is gonna return, it's gonna take just a regular old ID. It's gonna give back, instead of a descriptor, it's gonna give back. So it'll give back a name. So just a name, right? So we're in the tree package. Oh wait, this is totally not gonna work, right? Because the whole point is that we need to get the... okay, there's some trouble, right? Because the whole point is we wanted to get the table descriptor back so we could get its parent ID. And if we just have its name, obviously we can't get its parent ID. I guess... Okay, what if we made a single method called like qualified table name, qualified table ID? I feel like that's actually fine because it's the inverse of resolve table name. Let's try that. I feel like it's not horrible. So we'll say qualify, or like, Qualify is the right word? It's more like, unresolved table name. Get qualified table lookup. I suppose I could just call it lookup table name by ID. And then instead of giving back a name, this is actually going to give back the whole table name. How about that for a plan? So we get rid of these ones. So then instead of giving back a descriptor, this is actually going to give back this table name thing. We get rid of all this crap. Well, let's save this for later because we're going to need to redo it. But the whole point then is that we can say, we can sort of decompose it and pass it into this approximate size thing. I don't know. Claytro, have you ever been in that point where you think doing certain feature in Go is going to be a pain in the butt compared to maybe some other language? Yeah, I think, for this project, I think definitely there's a couple of annoying things that we run into over and over again with Go, mostly around memory management. I feel like that's the biggest thing that's bitten us about Go, about writing CockroachDB in Go. Besides that, well, and maybe a couple of other things like making like generator pattern kind of thing that you'd be used to in Python is pretty annoying in Go. Things like where functional programming techniques could come up that would be handy or kind of annoying in Go. Not having the lack of like discriminated unions or like sealed data types, match expressions. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, these are just like my laundry list of things that are a little irritating about Go, but honestly, for the most part, it's been fine, except for the memory management. So, oh yeah, templates. Fair point, Nikon. Yes, we ignored the whole giant part of the early part of this stream several months ago, which is where we were diving into the lack of monomorphized templates or generics or whatever they're going for with that stuff. Lack of that stuff is pretty tough for part of this project, but you know, we've been making it work, I would say, for the most part. So we're gonna look up this name. Okay, let's implement that thing first rather. So back to our planner now, right? Look up table name by ID. Okay, so we want to implement that here, I guess. So the first thing is that we'll just, I guess we can call into lookup table by ID. And then basically we just repeat the same stuff that we did before in our built-in function. We're going to pull that back up into this thing that we're implementing over here. So we're going to say the schema ID is table.getParent schema ID. And we're going to say, basically we'll just inline this thing. P.lookup P.descriptors. Yeah, we'll just inline this thing basically. And then we'll get rid of this because we no longer need it. And then we will inline this thing. And then here we're going to ask for the table.getParent ID, which is the database ID, I think. Okay. Flags, DB flags. I think we could actually just reuse this thing, right? This should be common lookup flags, and then we can just reuse it in both spots. Okay, so then ultimately what we get to do here is assemble that name thing like we did below. So we're gonna say return tree.make schema qualified. Make table name with type, is it called? Name with schema. And so here we're gonna pass in the database name. So tree.name database.getName. schema.name doesn't have a accessor for some reason. That's fine. And then finally we get to do the table.get name, right? What's wrong with this? I'm a little bit confused here. My syntax is just totally busted. Okay, right, and then this thing is, instead of going to return a table descriptor, it's going to return a tree.table name like this. Yeah? Okay. I think we're making some progress. I think we are making some progress here, little by little, slowly by slowly. Yeah. Anyway, Emacs Airno. I don't know if you're still here. If you are still here, I wanted to know, when are you doing? I heard you were doing a database-related stream sometime soon. If y'all don't follow Emacs No Error, Emacs Airno on the Twitches, you should follow him. Follow this man. Shout out Emacs Airno. Huh? You were last streaming Alien Swarm. Okay, nice. Well, you're about to do something pretty different, right? Next Friday, 10 a.m. PT. That's pretty exciting. So tell the folks, just since we're chatting, what are you going to be streaming about? Okay, so look up table name by ID. Looks up. It's kind of like the inverse of resolve table name. Given an ID, it looks up the table schema and database name of the table descriptor with that ID. Going to be walking through the storage engine of Red Panda. Vectorize.io, Red Panda. Very cool stuff there for sure. Might want to update that command. It adds appeared at the end of the URL. Oh yeah, I need to fix that. I need to figure out how to fix that. Thank you for that, Don Rand. Yeah, Vectorize.io is such a cool project. It's funny to me because we also, like, this big rewrite of the execution engine in CockroachDB that we worked on stream in the beginning, couple months of the stream, we also called it the Vectorized execution engine. So when I first started hearing about Vectorize.io, I was like, Vectorized, it can be a confusing name. It could mean so many different things, but I think it's a great name for a company, to be honest. Anyway, right, so let's see here. So yeah, Vectorize.io. I mean, I think it's basically, the idea is it's a more efficient re-implementation of Kafka. But then it's got more stuff in there that I don't actually understand, to be honest. But I bet if you watch the stream next week, you'll probably learn a little bit more about it. Kafka compatible. No code changes required. No JVM. That's a dream, right? Like, take Kafka, but then take out the JVM. Get rid of those GC pauses. Got lightning fast queuing. Drop-in replacement for Kafka, right? What's up, FTC GCTC? How are you doing? Okay, so anyway, we're gonna do this stuff. We're gonna look up table name by ID. We're gonna get our name back. And then we're gonna say our, let's see, how are we gonna set this up? Our database name. So we're gonna pass in over here name.catalog name, Then here we're gonna have to make some sort of weird melange. Or do we have to stringify this too? Here we're gonna have to be like, what if you say db name is equal to name.catalog name? We're gonna have to like do something super weird to get out. I think what we can maybe do is kind of do something a little janky. We're gonna say name dot schema name. Well, we're gonna say name dot catalog name is equal to name dot schema name. We're gonna say name dot schema name is equal to nothing. We're gonna say name dot explicit schema is equal to false. And that way, hopefully this stuff will kind of work out properly. Whatever, just some janky stuff. Here we're gonna pass in also db name dot, just db name on its own. db name dot string. All right. Okay, let's see again whether this is actually gonna help us out this time around. No zookeeper, truly the dream to get rid of all that infrastructure. Okay, given all that, let us go ahead and see if we have managed successfully to get rid of our dependency cycles. We sure hope the answer is yes. This does seem like a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. Gotten rid of those dependency cycles. Oh, you know what we deserve? You know what we haven't done yet on stream? Is give ourselves a little bit of encouragement with a little bit of a children's yay. Always the best thing to do when you've succeeded at something. Give yourself a little sound effect, right?
Computers hooked into over 1,000 data banks throughout the world.
eFrizz Ali, thank you for the follow. Okay, so we're getting some different kinds of errors, but that's fine. PG built-ins cannot use despv. I think I've got to
Computers hooked into over 1,000 data banks throughout the
update
world.
some other stuff here. Azerothab, thank you for the follow. Okay. Here we've just got to, this needs to be like a tree.id, I guess, right? I feel like one thing that I'd really like to do on the stream is to make this workflow where I commit amend and then push and then go over here and then fetch and then reset and then recompile a little bit more efficient, you know, like it's pretty slow. It's like a lot of typing. The reason I do it is that my computer, when it's streaming, it's like really slow to compile the database. So I like to do it on this remote machine, but it just feels really inefficient the way I go back and forth so much. That workflow is painful, right? Yeah, I agree that it's super painful. Feels like a big waste of time. We used to have this thing called like scripts GCE worker sync or something, but like it doesn't really work. It uses a thing called Unison. But Unison is like this weird OCaml thing, and it's like really like insistent that both sides of the client server pair have the same version of OCaml that they were used to like compiling this Unison thing or something like that. And I've had a lot of trouble just figuring out how to get the right copies of these things installed on both machines. I don't know why that would be the case, but it just is. And so, you know, basically I haven't invested into this. Let's see. So I think, how does this even work anyway? Sync. Yeah, so there's some Unison thing. There's some kind of Unison FS monitor. And then from there, I guess it's supposed to just work, but in reality, I think it like is terrible. I would love a fix for that. I would love to figure out a way to fix that. I mean, to be honest, I do like the control of having it sync via Git though, because with Git, it's like, you know, exactly the units of syncing. Whereas I feel like with Unison, it might get a little bit confusing just thinking about like what the current state of your repository is, even though it's supposed to be like exactly in sync at all times. It just feels like a little bit scary maybe to not exactly know what's happening when. Feels like you might run into trouble with half synced stuff. So I do like the Git, but maybe I just need to make some aliases, you know, make a little script or two, make that a little bit more efficient for myself. What would it be anyway? It would be kind of like, okay, so I'm sort of like add a bunch of stuff, git commit amend. I have this thing that I always forget to use called git cane that I think just does git commit amend. I need to add a push to that. I need to go over here. I need to add a pull. I don't know. It's just like, it's annoying because it's on two different machines. Yo, JB Pratt, what's up? This thing is always POV, git command, git commit amend, no edit. That's right. I feel like somebody on the stream helped me do that once, and I always like forget what's actually in it. Might have been Matt. I don't think it was Matt, but it could have been. Okay, so Node is doing stuff. Sometimes I run into trouble with this Webpack where it's like, it seems like it's doing a lot of stuff, but then it actually is just hung waiting on some like something or other, some like weird quirk of our build system that sometimes comes up, especially when you get into this JavaScript linking part of the pipeline. That's the average Webpack experience. How does this work again? Can I say? There we go. Wait, what? Okay, as soon as I started that watch command, it finished, and now everything else is gonna build. That's cool. Recipe failed, but why? Why did it fail? What do you mean it failed? Oh, okay. Cannot use dummy sequence, blah, blah, blah. Didn't implement eval planner. Okay, right. So I've got to, I think I'm coming to the end of this. I think hopefully I shouldn't have to recompile the Webpack stuff anymore, but we'll see about that. So I think for these dummy things, I can just literally say return nil, errors dot with stack. These are like, I forget exactly what we use this for, but it's not so important to implement all these methods properly. That's why it's called dummy. Am I right? Maybe offensive towards dummies. I don't know. Okay, so there was dummy sequence operators and dummy eval planner. Same problem with dummy eval planner. Okay, so let's try to use our cooler workflow this time around. I mean, the first thing is we have to git add one. And since I've got all these untracked files, does anybody know if there's a way to do git add and get everything that is not untracked? Is that something that you can do? Because I feel like if you just do git add dot, it'll get everything, even if it's untracked. Git add dash u. Update the index just where it already has an entry. That sounds pretty sick, honestly. Wait, so you're saying that I can do git add dash u dot? Oh my gosh. My alias name 3333, you've just changed my life. I'm serious. I've been looking for a way to do this for so long and I've never thought to think about it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yo, Shrek GG, thank you for the follow. Okay, so then I can get cane. And I can get push F mine. Dash U, it appears to only edit. Yeah, it basically ignores untracked files. So if you give it a name of a file that's not already quote unquote in the index, aka tracked, it ignores it. Okay, so then back over here. So what's the quick way to do this, right? It's sort of like, the thing that we're doing here is we're just resetting. It's sort of like a pull force almost, right? Is there a way to like do a pull where instead of dash dash rebase or dash dash merge, it's just gonna like force overwrite with everything that the parent had, the origin had? That would also change my life. Who knows about how to do this? Yeah, I wonder if there is such a thing. I wonder if we Google it. So let's see, get full overwrite ref. Kip Vanderzee, thank you for the follow. Okay, well, this is just saying what I already do. So there's no shortcut for it, I suppose. Too bad for me. Guess I could make an alias. Kind of a weird alias because it's 2 commands, but anyway, we'll just roll with it for now. Get fetch mine, we'll get reset. Keep going along with our lives. 2 commands isn't so bad. The heck? Okay, so the problem here is just that, of course, I didn't update this thing after I did it to take a tree.id instead of a deskpb.id. That was the entire point, to avoid the dependency cycle. All right. Pretty annoying, this whole dual machine workflow, right, guys? Okay, so using our skills, we're going to do git add-u dot. We're going to do git cane, git push fmine. It's like a 5 command workflow, you guys. It's not great. It's not great. We can do speed runs of this. Speed run. Update code. Push code. Pull code. Compile code. Speed run. Okay, right, so the tenant status server. I had a feeling that this was gonna bite me later on, and of course it actually does. So the problem is that this status server business in CockroachDB is a API that allows you to get various metadata about stuff that's going inside of the database. We have 2 implementations of it, one for the sort of standard single tenant, single cluster deployment thing, and one for the multi-tenant cluster deployment where we have KV pods deployed over here, SQL pods deployed over here. The SQL pods are talking to the KV pods, and the SQL pods aren't really talking to each other yet. That's something that we want to change. But anyway, for this multi-tenant deployment, we do have a slightly different way that things are organized, and I suppose this status server has its own implementation. So we've got to implement it. And I think for now, we're just going to basically return, sorry, you can't get stats if you're a tenant status server.
The data bank's too big. I have to narrow down the search. How are you going to do that?
Genuinely
By
deceptive.
guessing.
Thank you for the follow. So let's see, testserver.go, huh? Testserver.go. Okay, so this tenant status server does not implement. It'd be kind of nice if this, I mean, how come this doesn't just have a type assertion, right? Normally we do that. Normally we say something like var blank server pb status server is equal to tenant status server. And that way you could sort of type assert. It'll be obvious when you're editing this file that we don't implement the right method. So I'll fix that. Down here, basically we're just gonna say return nil. Errors dot, I don't know, can we make, don't we have like an unimplemented error sort of thing? It's not really in the right context for this though. That's like a Postgres wire protocol error. We'll just say for now errors dot new table stats unimplemented in for tenant status server. Put a big to-do Jordan. This needs to be implemented to support. PG total relation size for multi-tenant clusters. How about that? Okay, great, great, great. Back over here, what's going on with this? Okay, so import sequence operators. Yet another one of these little mini eval planner things that I suppose we need to like. The heck? Okay, this also sort of should have a type declaration by it, right? This is supposed to be a sequence operators. And over here, we should really say var blank sequence operators is equal to import sequence operators. Just to make everybody's lives a little bit easier, it's nice to have these type declarations up front. Doesn't look like we need this to be implemented. So we're going to make this sort of failed implementation like return nil error sequence operators and move on with our lives. All right. You know what we should really do is just put them in an and that way we'll just have to press up and enter. Git fetch mine and git reset hard mine PG table size. Why didn't I do that the entire time? I don't know. Sometimes you just don't do things, right? Holy crap, I think we have a fully compiled database. So exciting. We've done it. We've done the impossible. All right. Okay, so let's run this thing. And let us run a SQL shell. And let us try to run PG table size, I guess, show tables. Create table. Make a table. It's got some data inside, a megabyte of A's or something. We should be able to say, select PG total relation size of C reg class. Like this, and hopefully, I bet, okay, who's gonna bet? I should use the Twitch prediction features, but I bet this is gonna crash the database. Oh my god, it did it. I think it worked. I think it worked, you guys. This is legit. So 470 kilobytes to represent this big, something seems slightly off, right? Like how can you represent 1 megabyte of A's with only 470 kilobytes of data? Perhaps it's compression. Perhaps this takes into account compression. So that would be cool. It seems like it's possible. It seems like this could possibly work. Great job, team. So, okay, right. So I wanted to troubleshoot though, right? Ultimately, the problem that we had earlier was that if you went to this databases page in the DB console, right? We had this issue where if you made a new, oh, you know what I need to do is I probably need to start a new cluster for things. Compression, yay, super yay. Any compression algorithm would do much better for repeating characters. Yeah, I don't know, dude. It's a mystery. I don't exactly understand what's going on under the hood here. But what I wanted to quickly do is just check that bug. I wanted to debug whether we can fix whatever's going on there. So I'm going to move my data directory aside here. We're going to call it cockroach data tbch because we've got the tbch data loaded up there, which is kind of nice to keep. We're going to start a new database. We're going to go over here. We're going to make our table again, and then we're going to count it. And I'm expecting that this was going to say 0 because we did have that bug. And I bet the bug works both in the DB console and on the CLI. Okay, it didn't work. Oh, you know what's probably the case is that we probably fixed this bug on the master branch. That's probably what happened. This is probably just something that exists on 20.2 and got fixed at some point. I don't seem to be able to trivially reproduce this on the master branch. Though, maybe we fixed it sometime after 20.2. Would be nice to backport
The
this
data bank's
fix.
too big. I have to narrow down the search.
You can
How are you gonna
find
do
it.
that? By guessing.
Willow01 and Goose666, thank you for the follows.
I'd like to catch up more, but we should probably both get some sleep.
Okay, so actually, you know, maybe what we should do here is like rebase here. Squash the last two commits together. And we probably want to change the commit message here. Yeah, I mean, the question is, again, do we actually want to ship this? It's a little bit unclear. I feel like I would like to get this thing out because it does come up from time to time, right? It's like this is something that people would like to know. Being able to query the database and table sizes via SQL is something that you can do in the DB console, so you should be able to do it in SQL. It's inefficient in the DB console, yes, but now it will also be inefficient in SQL. Does that mean we should not ship it just because we know we would like to build something better? I just don't know. I think that realistically, it often takes time to build something that's significantly better. And I think that it would be nice to deliver this value because it's, you know, it's like value that we have already delivered in the same way in the web front end, right? So why would we feel badly about delivering that same value in the SQL backend? I don't know. It's probably should get some feedback from other folks about that. Okay. In terms of number of bytes to the table for Carcass to be, well, so I'm going to say for Carcass to be, this means an approximate total of the number of replicated bytes that make up the ranges for the table. Get rid of this. This value is identical to the value that is reported in the replicated size column of the DB console's databases page. All right, I think that's going to be maybe more palatable than the last thing that I pushed on this branch. Okay, so where are we at with stuff? Where are we at with stuff? There's this, there's this. What's going on with this one? So this was the PR that we had made last time, sort of the first half of it. And I wouldn't expect it to be failing any checks. Yo, Sasha, 4C, thank you for the follow. Oh yeah, expected 14. Okay, I need to fix that real quick. Okay, this should be pretty straightforward. Include schema and ranges. So I just need to edit some tests to not be broken. Expected 14 columns, but found 16. Oh. The issue is that I didn't add it to this giant. Oh, that's horrible. Well, nothing I can really do about that, I don't think. Okay, so this is from the PR where we added the table ID and the schema name to this ranges table. And the way that this test framework works is that you have to specify the data types of each of the columns in this short form. So I is an integer and T is text. So I guess I've got to add, this is gross. Okay, I, T, 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 I, T, 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 I, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then I've got to add one more T. It's totally fine, guys. Don't worry about it. Yep, don't worry about this at all. Totally all good. Any tips for someone learning Go right now? Shrek, I've got some resources that I like to send folks. Those first two in particular, I think are good for learning Go. The Golang Tor itself is great, and this GoPL.io I think is also pretty good. Okay, so
Get out of here, Dewey. What are y'all doing in here? We're smoking reefer.
wait a minute. Something seems wrong. I think the ranges no leases ones has fewer columns. Oh my god, this is so awful. I'm not happy about it. Okay, it's the same thing, right? 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then an I. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then an I. Then we have one more T. So not quite the same as the one above here. Okay, was that the only test issue that was in this PR? It kind of seems like it, right? They all have the same problem. Expected 14 columns, but done 16. You've done the Tor but struggle a bit in the last exercises. What are those last exercises? I didn't realize that the Tor even actually had exercises, to be honest. I haven't looked at it in a really long time. And then let's quickly rebase our other PR to be on top of the first one properly. Okay, here's another thing I wanted to quickly do is dang it. Okay, this will never end. Need to rebase the actual PR onto the actual upstream, which I guess I haven't done in a while. Wow, oh my gosh, I'm so out of date. Like, it's like so many PRs have been updated since the last time that I pulled. Include schema in main ranges, we'll rebase. Margin master. They mess with Go routines, which is something that is hard from someone coming from single-threaded languages. Yeah, totally. Yeah, understanding concurrency takes a lot of time, especially if you haven't looked at it before. Not intuitive stuff. It's an important concept, for sure. But okay, so it looks like upstream, all they've done is added a new test case here for something called CRDB internal.node in-flight trace span. So all I've got to do to merge these, I think, is take theirs and then take mine as well. So I think that should be good to go. Okay, and then we've just got to rebase our one other branch one more time real quick. PG table size. Got some conflicts here too. Should have guessed. Okay, so some problems in eval context.go. It's looking like the same thing though. Something very easy to resolve. can definitely understand. Oh, I can understand concurrency, but with Go you have channels and such. It's a bit different. Definitely easier than C and C++. Yeah, I think that's true. I think that Go has a pretty good concurrency model overall. I think channels take a little bit to get your head around. Their API isn't exactly verbose, so it's not necessarily always super obvious the right way to use them. But I think Go routines as a model, it's pretty nice. You've got to learn some of those the helper primitives. I think like the stuff like wait group. Wait groups are really nice. Make it a lot easier to work with Go routines. Making simple things like a little worker pool or something like that with a channel and a wait group. I think that's a pretty classic pattern that is made very easy with Go. I think working with Go routines without any of those like helper concurrency primitives it's a little annoying. I think it takes practice. My advice for you would be try to learn those library functions because they make things a lot easier than doing it all yourself. Okay, so what now? We can add this back. We can continue our rebase. Okay, so what I want to do, right, is go to this PR here and comment a little bit just on what I've learned. Okay, so I took a look at redoing this today. I ended up having the built-in function call into the admin server's table stats request API the same as what the DB console does. This will remove the concern about having, unify, this will prevent any confusion where the numbers don't align, something that I agree would be deeply confusing for everyone. It's true that, for now, though, built-in will still fan out. It's not ideal, but I think that ultimately it's going to be better to provide information in both SQL and DB console, even if inefficient. I think it would be good to collect these statistics during, say, table statistics collection and store them in a new table or a new way in the existing table statistics system table, but that's going to be a pretty significant chunk of work. Okay, so in terms of the closes, this is going to go over here.
How are you going to do that? By guessing.
Andrel Santos, thank you for the follow. One thing that still hasn't gotten into my head are interfaces. I know it's not supposed to be object-oriented programming, but it's hard to know if a type implements the interface or not. Ooh, that's absolutely true. I think that one thing that I was just looking at for folks on stream that you might find useful is this idiom where we do this sort of declaration like this. I don't know if you can see on my screen. Presumably you can. I don't know why I'm talking like I'm on a Zoom call, but if you declare a variable that has no name like this, and you put the interface on the left and the type that's implementing it on the right, this is sort of a idiomatic way of saying, I expect that the thing on the right is going to implement the thing on the left. And in fact, the type checker enforces this. So if you put this and the right side does not implement the left side, it will fail at compile time. But this doesn't have any runtime costs, this little check. So it's not exactly the same as putting like interfaces or implements blah like you would in Java or C++, but I think it's an idiomatic way of getting a very similar effect. Kroll and Spark, thank you for the follow as well. All right. Well, this is seeming pretty decent. I mean, I don't know. We've let's see. I guess I should edit this. This no longer does this. This should really say depends on this. Get rid of this stuff. This needs to say PG total relation size. Does Golang have a thing to fill in missing functions in interface implementation? Yes, it certainly does, my friend. Okay, check this out. Tree.sequence operators. We're gonna add a new thing. We're gonna call it the foobar context context.context, right? So if I go back over here to where I was supposed to be implementing that. Wait, what file was that in again? Okay, so here it comes up with a red line, right? It's like, oh no, cannot use import sequence operators as type tree, type does not implement. All I have to do is hit the old option enter, implement missing methods, and then it fills it all in for you. Isn't that sick? So good. I use that all the time. It's like very important for my workflow, I would say. Golang in general is just like, I don't know, so good. It's truly good. One thing that I guess it doesn't have that I do find frustrating is that I wish that over here in the sequence operators, I should be able to say, oh, you know, there probably is a way to do it. I bet I can say refactor, change signature. Oh, no, I can't. I wish that there was a way to say for an interface, let me add a new method and go to all of the implementations and add stubs like that. I don't think that there is such a thing, and that's kind of irritating, but you know, whatever. It's like kind of close enough. Yeah. I just never knew where to look, even though I was used to that coming from IntelliJ. Yeah, it's in the like the intentions or whatever. The, you know, whatever that option enter thing is actually supposed to be called. JetBrains in general is so good. Yeah, I agree. It's amazing. Huge fan of JetBrains. Yeah. Guys, give me 2 minutes. I'll be back. Hey, want to hate IDEs but can't. There are IDEs and then there are JetBrains IDEs. Shrek, I completely agree with what you're saying on that. JetBrains is just the next level, man. I have to say, it feels like, you know, if I had to have a backup career outside of databases, I would love to go work at JetBrains. It just seems so sweet. Imagine working on those IDEs. They're so effective, so efficient. Just feels like there's so much that you can do there. Might just be really fun. I don't know. It seems like they only really hire in Russia though, so I don't know if that's really going to work out for me. Donran, thank you for the follow. Hate on all software. Understand that it's the norm to have bugs. Yeah. I don't know, guys. I don't know. So let's see. I was thinking. That how did this already fail? This is really good. Writing a blog and listening. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad that you've been enjoying hanging out. I feel like this is from a previous incantation, maybe. Right? I feel like this didn't get re-triggered after I pushed most recently. But yeah, I don't know, guys. I think to be honest, I'm feeling like it's time to call it. I think we've made some good progress here. We got this thing done. We started it last time. We redid it a couple times, but I'm feeling like reaching the end of what I wanted to get done today. So I think it's time to call it a day. But you guys, thanks so much for hanging out. It was really fun. I feel like we had some good chats today, you know, about all sorts of stuff. I'll be back next Friday. I guess I'll be back after Emacs Air Nose stream as well. So make sure to check that out. I might do a stream this weekend. We'll see. But anyway, let's go ahead and find somebody to raid. Why don't we? That's the next step. Find somebody to raid. I wish that there was a way for me to get to the science and technology category most efficiently, because I always just come up with all this like random spam. Okay, here we go. Science and technology. Let's say who is on Twitch to raid. Could raid our friend CM Griffin. Could raid Cyber Barbie. Melky. Got some homies on this on the Twitch today for sure. New Relic has a stream. Oh, that's actually super cool. Everyone's getting into the Twitch DevRel game, I guess. Ruby beginner exercises. Adafruit. Who should we raid? Hexachesagon? Learning Rust because I was told to. Eating a tub of yogurt while studying. Mastermindio. We rated Mastermindio like last time, so I don't want to do it again. But he's awesome. You should absolutely check him out. I just don't want to. I want to spread the love because I only stream once a week, for the most part, anyway. Server crash. Just watching a cockroach Zoom meeting the other day. That's cool. Like a webinar. I'm trying to get them to do the webinars on YouTube and Twitch too. We'll see if it works out. Ruby beginner exercises.
All right, so that passed there. And it wants to make sure that's not wild. And we want to make sure that
I don't know. I'm not sure. Who should we raid? I don't know. Led by Adam Storm. Oh, that's super cool. I'll make sure that I tell him that you said hi. Let's just raid this guy, Muy Danny. Why not? It'll be fun. Okay, so we're gonna give this guy a raid. So if you do have the large data bank emote, feel free to spam it. You know, you can do sort of one of these and one of these. Give this be the raid message. Okay, so say hello to this fellow. Be nice. Send him my regards, and I'll just have to see you guys next time, right? Have a great weekend. Be good to yourselves, get some rest, take a walk. All right, bye guys.